What happens when a single father and his billionaire CEO crash on a deserted island and the roles reverse completely? Evan Cole never expected his boss, the untouchable Lena Hartwell, to bleed. He never imagined she'd need him. But when their plane tore apart over the Pacific, corporate hierarchy died in the smoke and salt water. Now, survival doesn't care about titles. It only cares about who can build a fire, who can stay calm when fear claws at your throat, and who refuses to quit when hope runs dry. This is their story. If you want to see how it ends, stay until the final word, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The first thing Evan Cole felt was heat, not the comfortable warmth of his daughter's forehead when he checked for fever at night, not the gentle heat of morning coffee in his cramped kitchen. This was different, angry, aggressive, alive. This heat wanted to consume him. His eyes snapped open to twisted metal and smoke. The world tilted at a sickening angle. His shoulder screamed, and when he tried to move his arm, white-hot agony shot down to his fingertips. He couldn't remember where he was, couldn't piece together the last few minutes. Everything felt fragmented, like a puzzle scattered across a table. Then memory crashed back with brutal clarity. The plane, the conference. Flying home to Seattle because Maya had a science project due Monday, and he'd promised he'd help her build that volcano. The turbulence that felt wrong from the start. The flight attendant's forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. The captain's voice, too calm, saying something about minor difficulties and precautionary measures. Then the drop. Not turbulence. A drop. Like the sky had opened its hands and let them fall. The oxygen mask deploying, the screaming, the laptop flying past his head, the window beside him spiderwebbing with cracks. The terrible groaning of metal being forced into shapes it was never designed to hold. The impact. Evan tried to sit up, but his body refused. His left shoulder was pinned beneath something, part of an overhead compartment maybe, or a seat torn from its moorings. He couldn't tell. Everything was shadows and smoke and that relentless crawling heat. He coughed, tasted salt and copper. Blood. His blood, or someone else's, he didn't know. Help, he tried to say, but it came out as a whisper, barely audible over the crackling sounds around him. Flames. Somewhere close, something was burning. Panic clawed at his chest. Maya. He had to get home to Maya. His sister was watching her for the week, but Maya needed him. She needed her dad. She'd already lost her mother 3 years ago to cancer. She couldn't lose him too. Not like this. Not burned alive in a plane wreck in the middle of nowhere. He tried again to move, gritting his teeth against the pain. His right hand found purchase on something solid. He pulled, felt his body shift an inch, maybe 2. The weight on his shoulder pressed down harder. He gasped, vision blurring. Then he heard it, a voice cutting through the chaos like a blade through silk. Stop moving. You'll make it worse. Evan's head turned, though even that small motion sent pain radiating down his neck. Through the smoke, he saw her. Lena Hartwell, his CEO. The woman whose signature determined budgets, whose decisions shaped careers, whose presence in the third-floor conference room could silence 40 people with a single glance. She was supposed to be in first class. He'd been in coach, seat 23B, wedged between a college kid with headphones and a businessman who snored. But there she was, crawling through the wreckage toward him, her designer blouse torn and bloodied, a gash across her forehead painting half her face red. Her hair, always perfect, always pinned in that severe bun, had come loose, hanging in dark tangles around her shoulders. She looked nothing like the woman who'd given the keynote speech in San Francisco 2 days ago. Nothing like the CEO, who'd shaken hands with investors and smiled for cameras and projected absolute, unshakable control. She looked human. Can you feel your legs? Her voice was sharp, controlled, the same tone she used in board meetings when demanding answers. Evan tested them. Pain, but movement. Yes. Good. When I lift this, you pull yourself out, fast. We don't have much time. She didn't wait for him to agree. She positioned herself, found leverage on the twisted metal pinning him down, and counted. 1, 2, 3. She lifted, muscles straining, face contorted with effort. Evan pulled himself free, using his good arm, dragging his body across broken glass and torn fabric. His shoulder screamed in protest, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The moment he was clear, Lena dropped the metal with a crash and grabbed his good arm. "Can you walk?" "I think, yes or no?" "Yes." "Then move." She hauled him to his feet, and the world spun. The plane, what was left of it, stretched out around them like a gutted animal. The fuselage had split open, revealing blue sky and ocean beyond. Bodies lay motionless in the seats, some still buckled in, some thrown clear. Evan's mind tried to count them, tried to process, but Lena was already pulling him toward the gaping hole in the plane's side. "Wait," he said. "The others are dead or will be soon. Fuel's leaking. We have maybe 2 minutes before this whole thing goes up." Her grip on his arm tightened. "Move. Now." They stumbled through the wreckage. Evan's feet found uneven surfaces, seats, luggage, things he didn't want to identify. The heat intensified. Somewhere behind them, flames had found something eager to burn. The crackling grew louder, hungrier. They reached the opening. Below, maybe 15 feet down, was sand. White sand. And beyond that, water. Ocean. Waves rolling in with methodical indifference. "We jump," Lena said. Evan looked down. 15 feet onto sand with an injured shoulder. He'd done stupider things. Once, when Maya was 2, he'd jumped off their garage roof to retrieve her favorite ball. He'd sprained his ankle but got the ball. She'd clapped and called him her hero. He'd do this for her too. "On 3, Lena said. "1." The explosion cut her off. Heat and force slammed into them from behind, hurling them out of the plane. Evan had no time to brace, no time to think. He hit the sand hard, shoulder first, and the world went white with pain. He heard himself scream. Or maybe that was someone else. Or maybe it was just the sound of metal tearing itself apart. He rolled, gasping, trying to breathe through the agony. When his vision cleared, he saw Lena a few feet away, already on her feet, already moving. She grabbed him again, this woman who'd probably never lifted anything heavier than a briefcase in her life, and dragged him away from the burning wreckage. "Water," she said. "We need to get to the water." "Why?" "Debris. Shrapnel. Fire spreads. Move your legs, Cole." He did. Somehow he found his feet and ran with her, or stumbled, or something between the two. Every step sent fresh waves of pain through his shoulder, but he didn't stop. Behind them, another explosion rocked the air. Heat washed over his back. He didn't look. Couldn't look. They hit the water at a full run, cold, shockingly, brutally cold. The ocean swallowed them, and for a moment, Evan thought he might drown right there, 10 feet from shore, shoulder screaming, lungs burning, body refusing to cooperate. But then Lena's hand found his good arm again, and she pulled. He kicked. They fought the water together, making their way parallel to the shore, putting distance between themselves and the inferno that had been their plane. When they finally collapsed onto the beach, Evan lay on his back, staring at the sky. Blue. Perfectly, impossibly blue. Not a cloud in sight. The kind of sky that promised tropical vacations and umbrella drinks and lazy afternoons. Not plane crashes. Not death. His chest heaved. Salt water streamed from his clothes. His shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat, but the cold water had numbed it slightly. Small mercy. Beside him, Lena sat up, scanning the beach. Her CEO composure had cracked, replaced by something rawer, more primal. Her hands shook as she pushed wet hair from her face. Blood still ran from the cut on her forehead, mixing with salt water, dripping onto the sand. "Anyone else?" Evan managed to ask between gasps. Lena stood, shading her eyes, looking up and down the beach. The wreckage burned about 50 yards away, black smoke climbing into that impossibly blue sky. Debris littered the sand, suitcases, seat cushions, pieces of hull. But no people. No movement. No voices calling for help. "No," she said quietly, then louder, as if saying it again would make it true. "No one else." Evan closed his eyes. 47 people had been on that flight. He'd counted them during boarding, a habit left over from his days in the Army Reserves. 47 souls, now 2. Just 2. We should check, he said, starting to sit up. We can't. Lena's voice was flat, absolute. The fuel. It's not safe to get close, and anyone who survived the crash. She didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. Evan's mind went to the businessman who'd snored beside him, to the college kid with the headphones, to the flight attendant who'd smiled and asked if he wanted pretzels or cookies. Gone. All gone. My daughter, he said, and his voice broke on the words. I have to get home. Maya, she's 8. She's with my sister, but she needs me. Lena looked at him, and for just a moment, something soft flickered across her face. Understanding, maybe, or pity. Then it was gone, replaced by that hard CEO mask. Then we survive, she said. We survive, and we get home. Both of us. She extended her hand. Evan stared at it for a moment. This was Lena Hartwell, the woman who'd laid off 300 employees last quarter without blinking, who'd once fired a VP during a company picnic, offering to help him up. He took her hand. She pulled him to his feet. Your shoulder, she said, eyeing the way he cradled his left arm. Can you move it? Not well. We need to immobilize it. Dislocated, probably. Maybe fractured. Can't tell without an X-ray. She looked around the beach, then back at the burning wreckage. We need supplies. Medical kit, water, food, anything that washed up. But first, we secure you. You don't have to... I'm not asking your permission, Cole. She was already reaching for her sleeve, tearing at the expensive fabric. The blouse had probably cost more than Evan's monthly rent. She ripped it without hesitation, creating long strips of material. Hold still. She worked with surprising efficiency, binding his shoulder with quick, precise movements. Her fingers were gentle despite the urgency, careful not to cause more pain than necessary. Evan watched her face as she worked. The concentration, the determination. This wasn't a woman who'd learned first aid in some corporate team-building exercise. This was real knowledge, real skill. Where did you learn this? He asked. My father was a field surgeon, Army, made me memorize basic trauma care before I was 12. She tied off the makeshift sling, testing its stability. Said you never know when you'll need to save a life. I thought he was paranoid. Guess he was right. He usually was. She stepped back, examining her work. It'll hold for now, but we need proper medical supplies, pain medication, antibiotics if we can find them. Evan looked toward the wreckage. The fire had spread, consuming more of the fuselage. Smoke poured into the sky. A signal, maybe, if anyone was looking. But who would be looking? They'd been off course when they went down. He'd heard the pilot's strained voice over the intercom, something about adjusting our route and weather systems. They could be anywhere in the Pacific. We should move inland, Lena said, following his gaze. Find shelter, fresh water, make a plan. Shouldn't we stay near the beach for rescue? What rescue? She turned to face him, and her eyes were hard. Cole, think about it. We went down in the middle of the ocean, though. The plane's radio was dead. That's why we were in trouble in the first place. And even if they know we crashed, they don't know where. They'll search the flight path, but we were off course, way off course. The reality of it settled over Evan like a weight. No one knew where they were. No one was coming. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not ever. Then we make ourselves easy to find, he said. Signals. Fires at night. Reflective materials. Exactly. She nodded, and he saw a flash of approval in her eyes. But first we inventory what we have, then we secure the basics: shelter, water, fire. We approach this methodically. We don't panic, we don't waste energy on hope, we focus on action. It was strange hearing his CEO talk about survival like it was a business problem. But maybe that's what it was. Another challenge to solve, another obstacle to overcome. Lena Hartwell hadn't built a billion-dollar company by giving up when things got hard. Okay, Evan said. What do you need me to do? Scout the immediate area. Anything useful that washed up. I'll check the wreck's perimeter for luggage, cargo, anything salvageable. We meet back here in 20 minutes. Don't go far. We don't know what's on this island. She started to walk away, then paused. And Cole? Be careful. Your daughter needs you alive. Then she was moving, striding across the sand with purpose, despite the blood and torn clothes and the fact that she'd just survived a plane crash. Watching her go, Evan felt something shift inside him. This wasn't his boss anymore. This was his partner in survival. He turned and began his own search. The beach stretched in both directions, curving gently around what appeared to be a cove. White sand, clear water, palm trees swaying in the breeze. It would be beautiful under different circumstances. Romantic even. The kind of place people paid thousands of dollars to visit. Now it was a prison. Evan walked slowly, favoring his shoulder, scanning the sand. A seat cushion, waterlogged and torn. A briefcase, locked, half buried. He pulled it free, examined it. The lock was cheap. He smashed it against a rock until it popped open. Inside, papers, a laptop destroyed by salt water, a protein bar, and, thank God, a bottle of water, still sealed. He took both, stuffed them in his pocket, and kept moving. More debris. A child's backpack with a pink unicorn on it. Evan's throat tightened. He opened it. Coloring books, crayons, a stuffed bear. No child on the beach. No small body in the wreckage. He hoped, desperately, irrationally, that maybe they'd survived somehow, washed up somewhere else, found by fishermen or cruise ships or anyone. But he knew better. He left the backpack where it was and moved on. A suitcase yielded clothes, men's, too large for him but dry. He took a shirt, tied it around his waist. Another case had women's shoes, useless, and a toiletry bag with toothpaste, a razor, tweezers. He took the tweezers. You never knew. Then he found something that made his heart skip. A first aid kit. Red and white. Plastic case cracked, but intact. He opened it carefully. Bandages, antiseptic wipes, pain medication, gauze, medical tape. It was like finding gold. He was heading back to the meeting point when he saw something else half buried in the sand. Orange. Waterproof. He dug it out with his good hand, an emergency beacon, the kind boats carried. His hand shook as he examined it. Damaged. The casing was cracked, and when he tried the activation switch, nothing happened. Water had gotten inside, but maybe it could be fixed. Maybe. He tucked it under his arm and hurried back to where Lena waited. She'd been busy too. A small pile of supplies sat at her feet. 2 more water bottles, a bag of chips, some kind of portable charger. Useless without power, but still. A lighter, miracle, and what looked like a survival manual from a seatback pocket. Found a first aid kit, Evan said, setting down his haul. Lena's eyes lit up. Good. That's good. She grabbed it immediately, opened it, began cataloging contents. Ibuprofen, antibiotic ointment, bandages. We'll need more, but it's a start. She looked up at him. What else? He showed her the beacon. Her expression darkened. It's broken. Maybe we can fix it. With what tools? What expertise? She took it from him anyway, turned it over in her hands. We'll keep it, but don't hang your hopes on it. I'm not hanging my hopes on anything, Evan said, and he meant it. I'm just collecting options. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. Fair enough. They spent the next hour organizing their supplies, creating an inventory. It was depressingly short. Water. 4 bottles. Maybe 2 days' worth if they rationed carefully. Food. 1 protein bar, 1 bag of chips, some peanuts from someone's carry-on. 1 day. Maybe. Medical. The first aid kit, minimal but useful. Tools. 1 lighter, 1 broken emergency beacon, tweezers, a metal pen, some wire from the wreckage. Shelter. Nothing yet. Weapons. Nothing yet. We need to move inland, Lena said, looking at their meager pile. Find fresh water. That's priority 1. Then shelter. Then we figure out food. What about a signal fire? Tonight. We'll build one on the beach, but during the day we focus on survival. She stood, brushed sand from her ruined skirt. Ready? Evan looked back at the burning wreckage one more time. Smoke still poured skyward. Somewhere in that twisted metal were people he'd sat next to, people who'd smiled at him, people who'd had families waiting for them. He thought of Maya, of how she'd feel when she heard the news. Her dad's plane had crashed, no survivors. She'd already lost one parent, now she'd lose both, unless he made it home. "I'm ready," he said. They walked into the jungle together. The trees swallowed them almost immediately. Palm trees gave way to denser vegetation, broad-leafed plants, vines, undergrowth that grabbed at their ankles. The temperature jumped 10 degrees once they left the beach. Humid, oppressive. The air felt thick enough to chew. Lena led the way, moving with surprising confidence for someone in a torn skirt and ruined designer heels. She'd kicked the heels off back on the beach, walking barefoot now, her feet already cut and bleeding. She didn't complain, didn't slow down. "We're looking for high ground," she said over her shoulder. "A vantage point, somewhere we can see the island's layout, figure out where we are." "And water," Evan added. "Water flows downhill. If we find high ground, we follow the terrain down. We'll find streams, pools, something." It was sound logic, military logic. Evan had learned similar things during his reserve training, though that had been years ago, before Maya was born, before civilian life had softened him. He'd forgotten how much he'd learned, how much he'd buried under mortgage payments and parent-teacher conferences, and the quiet routine of single parenthood. Now it was coming back. They climbed. The terrain grew steeper, rockier. Evan's shoulder throbbed with every step, but he gritted his teeth and kept moving. Lena didn't look back to check on him, didn't slow her pace. He appreciated that. He didn't want to be treated like an invalid. After 30 minutes of climbing, they reached a small clearing, a break in the trees. Lena stopped, breathing hard, and pointed. "There." Evan looked. They were standing on a ridge overlooking the island. Below he could see the beach where they'd crashed, the burning wreckage now just a smudge of smoke in the distance. The island stretched out in front of them, maybe 3 miles long, half a mile wide. Volcanic rock formations jutted from the center, surrounded by jungle. On the far side, he could see another beach, pristine and empty, and beyond that, nothing. Ocean in every direction, no other islands, no ships, no signs of civilization. They were alone. "Well," Lena said, her voice carefully neutral, "at least we know what we're working with." Evan's chest tightened. This was real. They were stranded, truly, completely stranded. "We'll be okay," he said, though he wasn't sure who he was trying to convince. Lena turned to look at him. Her face was still streaked with blood and dirt, her clothes torn, her hair wild. But her eyes were sharp, focused. "We will," she said, "because we don't have another option." She was right. They didn't. They found water an hour later, a small stream trickling down from the volcanic rocks, pooling in a natural basin before disappearing underground. It looked clear, but Lena insisted they treat it before drinking. "Parasites, bacteria, who knows what's in there," she said, pulling out the survival manual she'd found. She flipped through pages, found the section on water purification. "We can boil it if we make fire, or we can use iodine tablets if they washed up in someone's luggage." "I'll go back to the beach," Evan offered. "Search more thoroughly." "No, we stick together. Rule 1 of survival. Don't separate unless absolutely necessary." She closed the manual. "We'll come back for water once we have a way to purify it. First, we need shelter." They found a spot near the stream, under an overhang of volcanic rock. It wasn't much, maybe 10 feet deep, 8 feet wide, but it would keep the rain off and provide some protection from wind. More importantly, it was defensible. Only one way in. "This'll work," Lena said, examining the space. "We'll need to clear it out, build up the entrance, create a fire pit. But it's solid. Better than I expected." Evan was already gathering materials, large leaves, fallen branches, anything that could be used for bedding or structure. His shoulder protested every movement, but he pushed through it. Pain was temporary. Exposure could kill. They worked in silence for the most part, falling into an unspoken rhythm. Lena would identify what needed to be done, and Evan would execute it. When his shoulder made a task impossible, she'd take over without comment. When her smaller size made something difficult, he'd step in. They were learning each other's capabilities, their limits, their strengths. By the time the sun began its descent toward the horizon, they had something resembling shelter. Not comfortable, but functional. A roof of palm fronds over the rock overhang, a bed of leaves and soft vegetation, a cleared area for fire. We should head back to the beach, Lena said, looking at the sky. Build that signal fire before dark. They made their way back down, moving faster now that they knew the path. The wreckage had stopped burning, reduced to a blackened skeleton of metal. The smell of smoke still hung in the air, mixed with something else. Something Evan tried not to think about. They gathered driftwood, dry seaweed, anything flammable. Built a pile on the beach, positioned where it would be visible from the ocean. Lena used the lighter, their only lighter, their most precious resource, and coaxed flame from dried palm fronds. The fire caught, grew, climbed into the darkening sky. They stood beside it, watching orange sparks drift upward to join the first stars. Someone will see it, Evan said. Maybe. They will. Someone's looking for us right now. Search and rescue. Coast Guard. They'll find us. Lena didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was quiet. Even if they are looking, the Pacific is vast. We could be anywhere. It could take days, weeks. Then we have enough for weeks. Do we? She turned to him. In the firelight, her face looked harder somehow, all angles and shadows. We have 4 bottles of water, Cole. 1 day of food. No way to purify more water yet. No reliable food source. An injured man and a woman with no survival training beyond a few lessons from her dead father. We'll figure it out, Evan said. We have to. Why? The question was sharp, challenging. Because you have a daughter waiting? Because you promised her you'd come home? The universe doesn't care about our promises. It doesn't care about 8-year-old girls who need their fathers. It just is. Evan stared at her, surprised by the bitterness in her voice. What happened to we survived because we don't have another option? He asked. That was before I saw the island, before I realized how truly fucked we are. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've built companies, Cole. I've orchestrated mergers worth billions. I've navigated corporate warfare that would make Machiavelli proud. But this? I can't negotiate with an ocean. I can't strategize against hunger. I can't. She stopped abruptly, jaw clenched. Evan understood. This was Lena Hartwell losing control. This was what fear looked like on someone who'd spent a lifetime refusing to show it. He didn't tell her it would be okay. Didn't offer empty platitudes. Instead, he said, then we learn. We adapt. Same as we did today. You figured out the shelter. I found the first aid kit. Together, we're stronger than we are alone. Are we? She looked at him. Or are we just 2 people dying slower than we would separately? I don't know, Evan admitted. But I'd rather die trying with someone than give up alone. Something in her expression shifted. Softened, maybe. Or just cracked a little more. Your daughter, she said. Tell me about her. Maya. Evan smiled despite everything. She's 8, smart as hell. Loves science, hates math homework. She can't sit still for more than 5 minutes unless she's reading. She wants to be a marine biologist when she grows up. Or an astronaut. Or both. She hasn't decided yet. She sounds remarkable. She is. His chest ached. I'm all she has. Her mom died 3 years ago. Cancer. It was fast. Too fast. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. I've been raising her alone since then, and I thought, his voice caught, I thought I was doing okay. But if I don't make it back, you will, Lena said firmly. We will, both of us. I don't break promises either, Cole, and I'm promising you now, we're getting off this island. Evan wanted to believe her, wanted to trust in that CEO confidence, that absolute certainty. But he'd seen the island. He knew the odds. Still, what else could he do but hope? They sat by the fire as night deepened around them. The ocean whispered against the shore. The jungle breathed and clicked and rustled with nocturnal life. Above them, stars emerged in impossible numbers, unpolluted by city lights. It was beautiful, terrifying, lonely. Tomorrow, Lena said eventually, we prioritize water purification. No matter what, we need to solve that first. Then food. Then we work on improving our signal capabilities. Agreed. And Cole? Your shoulder. We need to monitor it closely. Infection is our biggest risk right now. If that wound goes septic, I know. She nodded, staring into the flames. When I was 9, my father took me camping. Wilderness training, he called it. 3 days in the mountains with nothing but a knife and a water bottle. I hated him for it. Cried the entire first night. What happened? By the third day, I'd built a shelter, caught a fish, started a fire with sticks. I came home filthy and exhausted and furious that it was over. She smiled faintly. He said I'd thank him someday. I never did. He died before I got the chance. He'd be proud of you now. Would he? She looked at Evan. I built an empire, but I don't know how to catch a fish anymore. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals, but I can't remember how to build a deadfall trap. Everything he taught me, I let it atrophy. Chose boardrooms over survival skills. Chose profit over preparation. You're doing fine now. Because I don't have a choice. Put me back in civilization, and I'll forget again. That's who I am. That's who I chose to be. Evan understood what she wasn't saying. Lena Hartwell had spent so long being the CEO, being the powerful one, being untouchable, that she'd forgotten how to be anything else. And now, stripped of her company, her resources, her carefully constructed identity, she was facing herself for the first time in years. She was terrified. You know what I think? Evan said. I think we're all just pretending. Every single person. We put on costumes, CEO, single dad, teacher, doctor, and we play the role. But underneath, we're all just scared kids trying not to drown. And right now, we're both drowning. So maybe we should stop pretending and just help each other stay afloat. Lena was quiet for a long moment. Then, that might be the smartest thing anyone said to me in years. Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my reputation. She laughed. Actually, laughed. It was small and tired and maybe a little broken, but it was real. They fed the fire, watched the flames dance, and when exhaustion finally dragged them toward sleep, they took turns keeping watch, keeping the signal fire burning, keeping hope alive in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new pain, new reasons to give up. But tonight, they were alive. And sometimes, Evan thought as his eyes grew heavy, that was enough. Dawn broke with the sound of waves and the harsh cry of seabirds. Evan woke to find Lena already awake, sitting cross-legged near the dying embers of their signal fire, staring out at the empty horizon. Her posture was rigid, controlled, but he could see the exhaustion in the set of her shoulders. You were supposed to wake me for my shift, he said, sitting up carefully. His shoulder had stiffened during the night, each movement sending sharp reminders of the crash. You needed the sleep. Your body's trying to heal. She didn't look at him, just kept watching the ocean as if she could will a rescue ship into existence. Besides, I couldn't sleep anyway. Evan moved to sit beside her. The sand was cool beneath him, not yet warmed by the sun. Nightmares? Memories. Same thing. She finally turned to face him. In the morning light, she looked worse than she had yesterday. The cut on her forehead had scabbed over, but dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her skin had taken on a grayish cast. We need to move. Get back to the shelter. Work on water purification. We need to work on you first, Evan said, reaching for the first aid kit they'd left near the fire. That cut needs proper cleaning, and you need to eat something. We can't afford to waste. It's not a waste if it keeps you functional. He opened the kit, pulled out antiseptic wipes. Tilt your head. For a moment he thought she'd argue. Lena Hartwell didn't take orders, she gave them. But then, slowly, she tilted her head, giving him access to the wound. Evan worked carefully, cleaning away dried blood and sand. The cut was deep, probably needed stitches, but they'd have to make do with butterfly bandages. He worked in silence, aware of how close they were, how strange it was to be touching his CEO like this. A week ago, he'd been afraid to make eye contact with her in the elevator. Now he was literally holding her face in his hands. My wife used to do this, he said quietly, applying the bandages. Take care of me when I was being stubborn. I'd come home from reserve drills with scrapes and bruises, and she'd patch me up while telling me I was an idiot for volunteering for extra duty. Was she right? Usually? He finished with the bandages, sat back to examine his work. You'll have a scar. Add it to the collection. Lena touched the bandages gently, testing them. Thank you. We're even. You pulled me out of the plane. I'd say saving your life trumps basic first aid. Then I'll owe you one. Evan managed a small smile. Try not to cash in that favor until after we're rescued. They shared what remained of the protein bar for breakfast, each taking tiny bites, making it last. It barely touched Evan's hunger, but it was something. The water was harder. They had 3.5 bottles left, and the morning heat was already building. Dehydration would kill them faster than starvation. "We need to get back to that stream," Lena said, rationing herself to small sips. "Figure out purification. Today. No excuses." They gathered their meager supplies and began the trek back inland. The path they'd carved yesterday was already disappearing, jungle eager to reclaim its territory. Evan's legs were stiff, his whole body aching from sleeping on sand and the trauma of the crash, but he pushed forward. Lena moved ahead of him, barefoot and bleeding, not complaining. When they reached the shelter, she immediately pulled out the survival manual, flipping to the water purification section while Evan checked their surroundings. No animal tracks. No signs they'd had visitors during the night. Good. "Boiling is the safest method," Lena read aloud. "Requires fire and a container. We have fire capability, but we need something to boil water in." "The wreckage," Evan said. "Pieces of the fuselage. Aluminum. We could fashion something. It would need to be sealed, non-toxic." She closed the manual, thinking. "But it's possible. We'd need to get creative. I'll go back down, search more thoroughly." "Not alone. Lena, one of us needs to stay here, secure the shelter, start working on other necessities. Rule 1. I know, don't separate, but we can't both waste energy on the same task." He met her gaze steadily. "You're the strategist. You should be here, planning our next moves, working on improving the shelter. I'm just the muscle. Let me handle the manual labor." She studied him for a long moment, clearly unhappy with the logic, but unable to argue against it. 2 hours? If you're not back in 2 hours, I come looking for you." "Deal. And Cole?" Her voice stopped him as he turned to leave. "Be careful. We don't know what's on this island. Animals, terrain hazards, anything. Your daughter needs you alive." "I know," he said. "That's why I'll be careful." The descent to the beach was easier the second time, his body remembering the route. The wreckage looked different in daylight, smaller somehow, less threatening. Just broken metal and shattered dreams cooling in the morning sun. The smell had worsened overnight. Evan tried not to think about why. He approached carefully, testing the temperature of the metal before touching anything. Cool enough to handle. He began his search, looking for anything with volume, anything that could hold water. Seatback trays. Too small. Overhead compartments, too damaged. Then he found it. An aluminum serving cart from the galley, battered but intact. Perfect. He dragged it free from the wreckage, checking for holes. A few small punctures, but nothing that couldn't be patched with the right materials. He set it aside and continued searching. More supplies emerged from the debris field. A package of crackers, crushed but edible. A bottle of hand sanitizer, alcohol content high enough to use for sterilization. A sewing kit with needles and thread. A phone charger, useless, but he took it anyway. You never knew. And then, half buried in sand, something that made his heart race. A small camping stove, the kind backpackers used. The fuel canister was dented but sealed. He tested the ignition. It clicked but didn't catch. Water damage, probably. But if he could dry it out, clean the mechanisms, maybe get it working. "Thank you," he whispered to whoever had packed this in their luggage. He was loading his finds into the serving cart when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong. Not waves, not birds. Something else. Movement. In the jungle tree line. Evan froze, scanning the undergrowth. Nothing visible. But the sound came again, rustling, deliberate. "Hello?" he called out, immediately feeling stupid. If it was an animal, talking wouldn't help. If it was a person, another survivor, they would have responded by now. The rustling stopped. Evan waited, barely breathing, every muscle tense. His right hand found a piece of metal debris, something he could use as a weapon if needed. The seconds stretched out. Nothing. Just his imagination, maybe. Or a bird. Or the wind. He was jumpy, paranoid, seeing threats everywhere. He forced himself to relax, to breathe. "Get it together," he muttered. He finished loading the cart and began dragging it back up the slope. It was heavy, awkward, and his shoulder screamed in protest, but he managed, one foot in front of the other. Focus on the task. Don't think about phantom sounds in the jungle. Lena was waiting for him when he crested the ridge, her face tight with worry. "You're late. 7 minutes late." "Sorry, found more than I expected." He gestured to the cart. "Thought it was worth the extra time." Her expression shifted from worried to impressed as she examined his haul. "A stove? Cole, if we can get this working, we can boil water, cook food, maybe even sterilize the medical equipment if we need to." He was grinning now, proud of his find. "I know it's damaged, but I think I can fix it. I used to repair equipment during my reserve training. It's been years, but the principles are the same." "Then let's get started." Lena was already pulling the stove from the cart, examining it with the same intensity she probably brought to quarterly reports. "What do you need?" They spent the next 3 hours working together. Evan disassembled the stove carefully, laying out each component on a flat rock. Lena consulted the survival manual for water purification procedures. They worked in complementary silence, occasionally asking questions or offering observations. The stove's problem was simple: sand and salt water in the fuel line. Evan cleaned each piece methodically, using threads from the sewing kit to clear blockages, drying everything in the sun. His shoulder throbbed with every delicate movement, but he pushed through it. Meanwhile, Lena prepared the serving cart, patching small holes with resin from tree sap and strips of aluminum she'd carefully shaped. Her hands moved with surprising skill, precise and efficient. She caught him watching and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Nothing. Just didn't expect you to be good with your hands." "I designed my first software interface when I was 14. Built the whole thing from scratch, code, and UI." She smoothed another patch into place. "Before I was a CEO, I was an engineer. I just got better at delegating." "Why'd you stop?" "Stop what?" "Building things yourself." She was quiet for a moment, focused on her work. "Because there's no money in doing it yourself. The money's in getting other people to do it for you." She looked up at him. "That probably sounds cynical." "It sounds honest." "Same thing, usually." She set the cart aside, examining it critically. "This should hold. We can test it with stream water." Evan was reassembling the stove, hands steady despite his fatigue. The last piece clicked into place. He attached the fuel canister, said a small prayer, and pressed the ignition. It clicked again, then caught. A small blue flame danced to life. "Yes!" Evan couldn't keep the triumph from his voice. "We have fire on demand." Lena's face broke into a genuine smile, the first he'd seen from her. It transformed her completely, erasing years of corporate hardness. For just a moment, she looked young, happy. "Cole, you brilliant bastard." They tested their water purification system immediately, filled the serving cart halfway with stream water, positioned it over the stove's flame, and waited. The water heated slowly, then began to bubble. They let it boil for 5 minutes. The manual said 3 was sufficient, but Lena insisted on extra caution, then carefully removed it from the heat. While it cooled, they rationed the last of their bottled water, half a bottle each. Evan savored every drop, knowing it might be hours before the boiled water was safe to drink. "We should fill our bottles while we can," Lena said, eyeing their empty containers. "Have potable water ready to go." "Agreed. But we need to let this cool first. Touch that metal right now, we'll burn ourselves." Then we wait. She settled back against the cave wall, finally allowing herself to relax slightly. "Tell me something, Cole. Before the crash, what were you doing in San Francisco?" "Regional sales conference, 2 days of PowerPoint presentations, and networking events." He made a face. "I hate networking." "You're good at it, though. I've seen your numbers. You close deals." "Because I actually listen to what clients need instead of just pushing product." He shrugged. "Turns out people like being heard." "Revolutionary concept." There was no sarcasm in her voice, just tired acknowledgement. "I should have listened more. To a lot of people. Probably would have made fewer enemies." "You have enemies?" "Everyone at my level has enemies. It's the cost of success." She picked up a small stone, turned it over in her hands. "There was a VP once, Richards. Good man, smart, dedicated. He warned me about expanding into Asian markets too quickly. Said we weren't ready, needed more infrastructure, more local knowledge. I ignored him, pushed forward anyway. What happened? We lost $40 million in 18 months. Had to pull out completely. Richards resigned before I could fire him. She tossed the stone away. He was right. I was arrogant. Thought I knew better because I always had before. Evan didn't know what to say to that. He'd never seen Lena Hartwell admit to being wrong about anything. After Maya's mom died, he said eventually, I made a lot of mistakes. Trying to be both parents. Trying to fill a hole that couldn't be filled. I'd forget to pack her lunch. Show up late for pickup. Snap at her when I was just tired and sad and overwhelmed. He stared at his hands. One night she asked me if I still loved her. 8 years old, and she thought maybe I didn't love her anymore because I was so absent, so angry all the time. What did you tell her? The truth. That I loved her more than anything in the world. That I was doing a terrible job of showing it. That I was sorry. His throat tightened. She asked if we could try again, start over, be better together. Smart kid. The smartest. He looked up at Lena. Point is, we all mess up, CEO or single dad or anyone. We're all just doing the best we can with what we have. And when our best isn't good enough, then we try harder, we adapt, we survive. He gestured around the cave. Like now. Lena considered this, then nodded slowly. Survival, simple concept, harder execution. The water had cooled enough to handle. They carefully poured it into their bottles, filling each one to the brim. Evan took a tentative sip. It tasted metallic, flat, strange, but it was water, clean water, life. Not bad, Lena said, drinking deeply. Not good, but not bad. They finished one bottle between them, refilled it, and boiled another batch. By midday, they had a system. By evening, they had 6 bottles of purified water stored in the shelter. It felt like wealth. But food remained a problem. The crackers were gone, the peanuts were gone, their stomachs cramped with hunger. Lena studied the survival manual while Evan examined their surroundings. According to this, Lena said, the island should have edible plants, coconuts definitely, maybe breadfruit, taro, other tropical vegetation. We just need to identify what's safe. And what's poisonous? That too. What about protein, fish, birds? Fish would be ideal. The manual has instructions for making basic traps, spears. She looked up. Can you make a spear? I can try. They spent the rest of the afternoon on tool creation. Evan found a long, straight branch, hard wood, good weight. He used the knife blade from a razor to sharpen one end, working slowly, carefully shaping a point. Lena worked on a fish trap, weaving palm fronds into a funnel shape that would theoretically allow fish in, but not out. It was tedious work. Frustrating. Evan's hands cramped. The wood fought back, splitting in the wrong places, resisting his efforts. He wanted to throw it away, start over, give up. But he thought of Maya, of how she'd spent 6 hours building a birdhouse last spring, messing up again and again, never quitting. If his 8-year-old could persist, so could he. By sunset, he had something resembling a spear. Not great, crude, but functional. Tomorrow, Lena said, examining his work, we hunt, or fish, or forage, whatever it takes. Tomorrow, Evan agreed. They rebuilt the signal fire on the beach, larger this time, used damp seaweed to create more smoke, stood beside it as night fell, watching for any sign of rescue. Nothing. Just stars and darkness and the endless whisper of waves. Tell me about your father, Evan said as they sat by the fire. The field surgeon. Lena was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, he was brilliant, demanding, impossible to please. He expected perfection from everyone, especially me. My mother left when I was 6, couldn't handle him anymore, so it was just us. Him and me and his impossible standards. Sounds lonely. It was, but it made me strong, made me who I am. She poked at the fire with a stick. He died of a heart attack when I was 22, middle of surgery, just dropped. They said he probably knew something was wrong for weeks, but ignored it. Too important, too busy, too stubborn to admit weakness. I'm sorry. Don't be. He lived exactly how he wanted to live. Died doing what he loved. There are worse ways to go. She glanced at Evan. Better than a plane crash anyway. We're not dead yet. No, not yet. She stood, stretched. I should check the shelter. Make sure nothing's disturbed our supplies. I'll keep the fire going. She nodded and disappeared into the darkness. Evan fed more driftwood to the flames, watching sparks spiral upward. He wondered if Maya was looking at the same stars, if his sister had told her about the crash, if his daughter was lying awake, crying, believing her daddy was gone. I'm coming home, he whispered to the night. I promise, sweetheart. Daddy's coming home. The ocean didn't answer. It never did. Lena returned 20 minutes later. Everything's secure. No signs of animals or disturbance. Good. They sat in silence, keeping vigil over their signal fire. Evan's eyes grew heavy, but he fought sleep. They'd agreed to take shifts again tonight. He had first watch. Cole, Lena said suddenly, earlier, in the jungle. Did you see anything unusual? His exhaustion evaporated. Why? I thought I heard something while you were gone, movement, deliberate, not wind. I heard it too, down at the beach. He turned to face her. What do you think it was? Could be anything. Boar, maybe. This island's big enough to support wildlife, or birds. Large birds can sound like movement through undergrowth. But you don't think it was birds? I don't know what to think. She met his eyes. But tomorrow, when we go looking for food, we go armed. We go careful. And we don't take unnecessary risks. Agreed. They maintained the fire through the night, taking turns sleeping and watching. When dawn finally came, they were exhausted, hungry, and increasingly desperate. Today we eat, Lena declared, standing and brushing sand from her ruined clothes. One way or another, we find food today. They started with the obvious, coconuts. The island had dozens of palm trees, many laden with the hard brown fruits. The challenge was getting them down. Evan tried climbing, but his injured shoulder made it impossible to maintain grip. Lena was lighter, more agile, but lacked upper body strength. We knocked them down, Evan decided. He picked up a rock, took aim, and threw. Missed. Tried again. Missed again. This is humiliating, Lena muttered. She grabbed a rock, threw it in one smooth motion, and connected. A coconut dropped. Like that. Evan stared at her. Where did you learn to throw? Softball. College. I had a life before I was CEO, you know. They collected 6 coconuts before Evan's shoulder refused to cooperate anymore. Opening them was another challenge. The manual described using rocks to crack them, so they tried that. It took 20 minutes of smashing before the first one split open. The water inside was sweet. The meat was tough but edible. They devoured it like starving animals, which Evan realized they essentially were. Not enough, Lena said when they'd finished. We need protein, real calories. Then we fish. They took the spear and the trap down to the beach. The water was clear, revealing schools of small fish darting through the shallows. Evan waded in carefully, spear raised, trying to remember anything he'd learned about fishing during his brief stint as a Boy Scout. He thrust, missed. The fish scattered. He tried again. 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 After an hour, he'd caught nothing but frustration. Let me try, Lena said. You know how to spear fish? No, but you're doing it wrong. You're aiming where the fish is. You need to aim where it's going to be. And you know this how? Physics, light refraction in water. The fish isn't actually where it appears to be. She took the spear, waded in, stood perfectly still, waiting, patient, then struck. She pulled the spear up with a fish impaled on the end. Small, barely 6 inches, but it was food, real food. Holy shit, Evan breathed. Lena grinned. Physics. They caught 3 more fish over the next 2 hours. Lena speared 2. Evan, finally understanding the refraction principle, caught one. It wasn't much, but it was progress. Back at the shelter, they cleaned the fish and cooked them over the camp stove. The smell of roasting protein was intoxicating. When they finally ate, it was the best meal Evan could remember having. Better than any restaurant, better than any home-cooked dinner, because they'd earned it. They'd survived another day. We're getting better at this, Lena said, licking fish oil from her fingers. Not very CEO-like, but neither of them cared. Learning, adapting. Still need more calories. This won't sustain us long term. Then tomorrow we explore more, find other food sources, maybe set traps for birds or small animals. And keep the signal fire burning. Always. She looked at him seriously. But Cole, we need to face reality. It's been 3 days. No rescue, no planes overhead, no ships on the horizon. Even if they're searching, they might never find us. I know. So we need to think long term, not just survival for a few days, survival for weeks, months, however long it takes. The weight of that settled over him. Months on this island. Months away from Maya. She'd think he was dead. She'd grieve. She'd have to move on with her life without him, unless he made it home. Then we do whatever it takes, he said. We build better shelter. We establish reliable food sources. We create multiple signal systems. We turn this island into a home until rescue comes. Not a home, Lena corrected. A base. Home is where we're going. This is just where we're stuck. Fair enough. They spent the rest of the day improving their situation, reinforced the shelter with more branches, organized their supplies, created a designated area for tool creation and repair, built a second fire pit for cooking. Small improvements, but they added up. As the sun set, they returned to the beach to tend their signal fire. It had become routine now, automatic. Light the fire. Watch for rescue. Pretend they weren't losing hope with each empty horizon. My father used to say, Lena said quietly, that hope is a luxury the desperate can't afford. Better to focus on action, on what you can control. And what can we control? This. She gestured around them. Our choices, our effort, our refusal to give up. That sounds like hope with extra steps. She smiled faintly. Maybe, but at least it feels productive. They sat in silence, watching the fire burn. Somewhere out there, people were living normal lives, going to work, picking up their kids, complaining about traffic. They had no idea 2 people were stranded on an island, fighting to survive one more day. Tomorrow, Evan said, we explore the far side of the island, see if there's anything useful we missed. Tomorrow, Lena agreed. But tomorrow would bring challenges neither of them expected. Tomorrow would test them in ways they couldn't imagine. Tonight, though, they were alive, federal, safe, and sometimes that had to be enough. The 7th day started with rain. Not the gentle kind that whispered promises of relief, but the violent tropical downpour that turned the world into a wall of water. Evan woke to drops hammering the palm fronds above their shelter, water already pooling at the cave entrance. Lena was already awake, frantically repositioning their supplies away from the incoming flood. Help me, she said, not bothering with good morning. Everything we can't afford to lose needs to move to higher ground. They worked in synchronized panic, hauling bottles, medical supplies, food stores deeper into the cave. The stove, the spear, the survival manual wrapped in plastic torn from a seat cushion, everything that meant the difference between life and death. Outside, the rain intensified. Thunder cracked across the sky like the world splitting open. Lightning illuminated the jungle in stark white flashes, turning familiar shapes into something alien and threatening. The signal fire, Evan said suddenly. Gone by now, Lena replied, securing their last water bottle. We'll rebuild it when this passes. If it passes? She looked at him sharply. It will pass. Storms always do. But this one didn't seem interested in passing. It raged for 3 hours, turning the island into a drowning nightmare. The stream became a torrent. The beach disappeared under churning surf. Their carefully constructed world reduced to this small cave and the hope that the rock above their heads would hold. They sat side by side, watching nature demonstrate exactly how powerless they really were. All their preparation, all their survival skills, all their determination meant nothing against this. They were insects sheltering under a leaf, praying the rain wouldn't find them. I'm scared, Lena said quietly. It was the first time she'd admitted it, the first time the mask had fully cracked. Evan reached over and took her hand. It was shaking. Me too. They sat like that, holding hands in the dark, while the storm tried to wash them away. It felt important somehow, that moment of honest fear. No pretending. No CEO and employee. Just two terrified people who didn't want to die alone. When the storm finally broke, the island had transformed. The path to the beach was gone, replaced by rushing water and mud. Trees had fallen. The shelter had held, but barely. One corner of their palm roof had torn away, exposing them to the elements. And when they ventured out to check the beach, their signal fire was indeed gone. Every stick, every stone, washed away like it had never existed. "We rebuild," Lena said, staring at the empty space where their fire had been. Her voice was flat, mechanical. "We start over. Again." But Evan saw something different in her eyes. Not determination, defeat. "Hey," he said, touching her shoulder. "We've done it before. We'll do it again." "For what?" She turned to him, and her face was raw with emotion. "So another storm can destroy it? So we can keep rebuilding the same useless signal that no one sees anyway? We've been here a week, Cole. A week. No planes. No ships. No rescue. Maybe there isn't going to be a rescue. Maybe we're just going to die here, slowly, rebuilding the same pathetic fire over and over until we're too weak to continue." "You don't believe that." "Don't I?" She laughed, but it sounded broken. "I've built companies from nothing. I know when you're throwing good money after bad, when to cut losses and walk away. This island is a sinking ship. We're just too stubborn to abandon it." "We can't abandon it. There's nowhere else to go." "Exactly." She sank down onto the wet sand, no longer caring about her ruined clothes or her bleeding feet or anything else. "We're trapped. Completely, utterly trapped. And I hate it. I hate not being in control. I hate that nothing I do matters. I hate that I can't negotiate or strategize or buy my way out of this. I'm useless here." Evan sat beside her. "You caught those fish. You patched the water container. You figured out the purification system. That's not useless. It's survival. That's all. Just postponing the inevitable." "Survival is all any of us ever do," Evan said. "You think people in the city are doing something different? They're just surviving in climate-controlled comfort. But it's still just one day at a time, trying not to give up." Profound philosophy from a man stuck on a deserted island. I learned it from an 8-year-old. He smiled despite everything. "Maya told me once that sad days are just practice for happy days. You get through the sad ones so you're ready when the happy ones come back." Lena was quiet for a long moment. Then, "She sounds wise beyond her years." She had to be. When her mom died, she couldn't be just a kid anymore. She had to grow up fast, help me through my grief while handling her own. His voice roughened. "I tried to protect her from it, but kids aren't stupid. They see everything, feel everything." "Do you think she knows you're alive?" The question hit him like a physical blow. "I don't know. Probably not. The plane went down a week ago. They've probably declared us dead by now." "Then she thinks she's an orphan." "Yeah." The word came out strangled. "She thinks she's alone, and I can't do anything about it. Can't call her, can't hold her, can't tell her I'm coming home. I'm stuck here, completely helpless, while my daughter grieves." His voice broke. He tried to hold it together, tried to maintain the steady composure he'd shown all week, but suddenly it was too much. The crash, the survival, the constant fear, the gnawing hunger, the desperate, futile hope that someone would find them. It all crashed down at once. He bent forward, face in his hands, and sobbed. Deep, wrenching sounds he'd been holding back since the plane first hit the water. All the terror and pain and loss pouring out of him in ugly, gasping waves. He felt Lena's arm around his shoulders, felt her pull him close. She didn't say anything, didn't offer platitudes or false comfort. She just held him while he fell apart. When the tears finally subsided, leaving him hollow and exhausted, she was still there. "I'm sorry," he managed. "Don't be. You're entitled to break down. We both are." She handed him a piece of fabric, her sleeve torn off for the purpose. "Here." He wiped his face, embarrassed by the display. "Some survival partner I am. The best I could ask for, actually." She stood, offered him her hand. "Come on, we have work to do." "Lena, the fire can wait. Right now we need food. And I need you to teach me something." "Teach you what?" how to stop caring about control, how to just be in the moment like you do. She pulled him to his feet. You've been steady this whole time, calm. Even when things are terrible, you just keep moving forward. I need to know how you do that. Evan considered lying, making himself sound more capable than he was. But they were past pretenses now. I don't know if I can teach it, he said honestly. It's just something I learned being a single parent. You can't control everything. Kids get sick at inconvenient times. School projects are due when you're exhausted. Life happens whether you're ready or not. So you either fall apart every day or you learn to roll with it. I've spent my entire career trying to control everything. I know, and look where it got you. He gestured around the island. All that power, all that control, and you're just as stuck as me. Maybe being in control was always an illusion. She considered this, looking out at the storm-ravaged beach. That's a terrifying thought. Yeah, but also kind of freeing. If you can't control it anyway, why waste energy trying? So what do you do instead? You control what you can, your reactions, your choices, your effort. He started walking toward the jungle. Come on, let's find something to eat. Storm probably knocked down fruit, exposed roots, maybe even stunned some fish in the shallows. They spent the morning foraging, and Lena was right. The storm had been destructive, but it had also been generous. They found breadfruit scattered across the jungle floor, bruised but edible. Found a fallen tree with grubs in the rotting wood. Lena recoiled from them initially, but Evan reminded her that protein was protein. She forced one down, grimacing, then admitted it wasn't as terrible as she'd feared. They also found fresh water, collected in natural basins formed by rocks, pure and rain-clean. They drank greedily, filled their bottles, and for the first time in days, weren't desperately rationing every sip. See, Evan said as they made their way back to the shelter, arms full of food. The storm wasn't all bad. The storm destroyed our signal fire and nearly flooded our shelter. But it also gave us this, trade-offs. That's all life is. A series of trade-offs. Lena shook her head, but she was almost smiling. You're annoyingly optimistic. Maya says the same thing. They cooked the breadfruit over the camp stove, and it was better than Evan expected. Starchy, filling, almost like potatoes. Combined with the grubs and some coconut meat, it was their first genuinely satisfying meal since the crash. They ate slowly, savoring every bite. Tomorrow, Lena said between mouthfuls, we rebuild the signal fire. Bigger this time. More stable. We'll anchor it with rocks, create a foundation that can survive storms. And we should explore more of the island, see if there are any caves or high points we haven't checked yet. Agreed. We need a complete survey. Know every inch of this place. She paused. It's strange. A week ago, I was negotiating deals worth millions. Now I'm excited about finding grubs in a log. Perspective is a hell of a thing. It really is. She looked at him. Can I ask you something personal? Seems like we're past the point of asking permission. Fair enough. She set down her food. Your wife, Maya's mom. What was she like? Evan hadn't expected that question, hadn't talked about Sarah in months, but maybe it was time. She was kind, he said slowly, the kind of person who noticed when someone was hurting and actually did something about it. She volunteered at homeless shelters, organized food drives. Once she spent an entire weekend helping our elderly neighbor fix his roof, just because he mentioned it needed work. She sounds wonderful. She was. Too good for me, honestly. I never understood what she saw in a mediocre salesman with military reserve PTSD and commitment issues. But she saw something. I guess, he smiled sadly. She used to say I had kind eyes, that I made her feel safe. I always thought that was bullshit, but she insisted. Said safety isn't about being protected from danger. It's about knowing someone will stay when things get hard. Did you? Stay when things got hard? I tried. When she got sick, I was there every day, every treatment, every hospital stay, every terrifying doctor's appointment. But toward the end, when she was in so much pain and nothing helped, I wanted to run. Just leave. Couldn't handle watching her suffer. Couldn't handle my own helplessness. But you didn't run. No, I stayed. Held her hand. Told her it was okay to let go. And when she died, I held Maya while she cried and promised I'd never leave her too. His voice broke slightly. That's a promise I'm terrified I can't keep. Lena reached across and squeezed his hand. You'll keep it. We'll get home, both of us. But you sound more certain than you did this morning. This morning I was having a breakdown. This afternoon I had grubs for lunch. Perspective, remember? She squeezed his hand once more, then let go. We should check the shelter, make sure the storm damage isn't worse than we thought. The damage was manageable. They spent the rest of the afternoon reinforcing the structure, weaving new palm fronds to replace what had torn away, securing everything with vines and rope they'd salvaged from the wreckage. It was hard, tedious work, but satisfying. Each improvement felt like a small victory against the island's attempts to break them. As the sun began its descent, they prepared to rebuild the signal fire. But first, Evan wanted to check the beach one more time, see if the storm had deposited anything useful. That's when he saw it. Movement. In the water. But not fish. Something larger. Something that didn't belong. Lena, he called, his voice tight. Get back, now. She looked up from gathering driftwood. What? Then she saw it too. A shark. Maybe 6 feet long. Reef shark, probably, sliding through the shallows not 20 feet from where they stood. Its dorsal fin cut through the water with casual menace, gray body visible in the clear water. Don't move, Lena whispered, though she was already backing up slowly. Just back away. Slowly. They retreated up the beach, keeping their eyes on the shark. It seemed more curious than aggressive, patrolling the shallows, possibly drawn by the storm's churning of the water. But that didn't make it less dangerous. The shark circled once, twice, then headed out toward deeper water. But the message was clear. They weren't alone on this island, and the ocean wasn't a safe refuge anymore. We need to be more careful, Lena said once the shark was gone. No more swimming unless absolutely necessary. We stay in the shallows when we fish. We watch the water constantly. Agreed. Evan's heart was still racing. Add sharks to the list of things trying to kill us. The list is getting long. They rebuilt the signal fire with new urgency, working quickly before darkness fell. This time they created a stone ring to contain it, piled driftwood higher, made it impossible for waves to wash away. When they finally lit it, the flames climbed high into the evening sky, smoke visible for miles. If anyone was looking. It's good, Lena said, examining their work. Better than before, more stable. Unless another storm comes. Then we rebuild again. That's what we do now. We rebuild. We adapt. We refuse to quit. They sat by the fire as stars emerged, eating leftover breadfruit and watching the ocean. The shark was gone, but Evan kept scanning the water anyway, kept imagining shapes in the darkness. Threats everywhere. Tell me something happy, Lena said suddenly. About Maya. A good memory. Evan thought for a moment. Last year, she decided she wanted to learn to ride a bike. No training wheels, just straight to the real thing. I tried to convince her to start slower, but she refused. Said if she was going to do it, she'd do it right. Sounds familiar. Yeah, you two would probably get along terrifyingly well. He smiled at the memory. Anyway, she fell. A lot. Skinned her knees, cried, got back up, fell again. I kept asking if she wanted to stop, take a break, try again tomorrow. She kept saying no, just one more try. Did she learn? Eventually, took her 3 hours, but she got it. Rode all the way down the street without falling, came back with this huge grin on her face and said, "See, Dad? I told you I could do it." He laughed softly. She was so proud of herself. Couldn't stop talking about it for weeks. She sounds like a fighter. She is. She's stronger than both of us combined. Then she'll be okay, even if... Lena stopped herself. Even if I don't make it home. I wasn't going to say that. But you were thinking it. Evan stared into the fire. I think about it too. About what happens to her if I die here. My sister would take care of her, raise her well, but Maya's already lost one parent. Losing both would break something in her, something fundamental. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. How? How do we make sure, The frustration in his voice surprised him. We're stuck here, Lena. Completely stuck. We can build fires and hunt fish and pretend we're in control, but we're not. We're at the mercy of whether someone happens to sail by, whether a plane happens to fly overhead, whether luck decides to favor us for once. So we make our own luck. We create multiple signal systems. We explore every inch of this island. We prepare for every possibility. And if that's not enough, then at least we tried. She turned to face him directly. Cole, I need you to hear this. I need you to understand something. If we're going to survive this, we have to believe we can. Not hope, not wish. Believe. Because the moment we accept defeat, we're already dead. That sounds like corporate motivational bullshit. It is corporate motivational bullshit, but that doesn't make it less true. She stood up, brushing sand from her clothes. I've built $1 billion company from nothing. I've survived hostile takeovers, market crashes, betrayals from people I trusted. I didn't do it by giving up when things looked impossible. I did it by refusing to accept failure as an option. This isn't a boardroom. No, it's harder. The stakes are higher, but the principle is the same. You fight, you adapt, you outlast. That's what winners do. Evan looked up at her, this woman who'd gone from CEO to barefoot survivor in a week, still talking about winning like winning was possible. What if we're not winners? He asked quietly. What if we're just two people who got unlucky and ran out of time? Lena crouched down to his level, meeting his eyes. Then we make the most of whatever time we have left. We stay human. We take care of each other. We don't let this island turn us into animals. That's winning, too. She held out her hand. Come on, we should get some sleep. Tomorrow we hunt, and we explore the North Ridge, and we keep fighting. Evan took her hand and let her pull him up. You're not going to let me wallow in despair, are you? Not even a little bit. Lena Hartwell, ruthless CEO, destroyer of self-pity. Damn right. But she was smiling now. Someone has to keep you from giving up. Might as well be me. They made their way back to the shelter, leaving the signal fire burning behind them. Inside the cave, they'd created something almost comfortable. Beds of soft leaves, organized supplies, a small fire pit for warmth. It wasn't home, but it was shelter. It was safe. It was enough. Evan took the first watch while Lena slept. He sat at the cave entrance, keeping an eye on the fire, watching the jungle for movement. The night sounds had become familiar now. Insects, birds, the rustle of palm fronds in the breeze. He could almost forget he was stranded. Almost pretend this was just camping. Almost. Somewhere in the darkness, something moved. Not the wind, not birds, something deliberate. Evan tensed, reaching for the spear. Who's there? Silence. Then the sound again, closer. He stood, heart hammering. Lena, wake up. She was on her feet instantly, alert despite having been asleep seconds before. What is it? Movement. Out there. He pointed into the darkness. Something's watching us. They stood side by side, weapons ready, staring into the jungle, waiting. The seconds stretched into minutes. Nothing emerged. No sounds. No movement. Maybe it was nothing, Lena whispered. Or maybe it's smart enough to wait. They maintained their vigil for another hour, taking turns watching different sections of the tree line. But whatever it was, animal, imagination, or something else, it didn't show itself. Eventually, exhaustion forced them to stand down. They couldn't stay alert indefinitely. They needed sleep. So they took the risk, retreating deeper into the cave, keeping weapons close. Tomorrow, Lena said as they settled in, we set up a perimeter, warning system, something that alerts us if anything approaches the shelter. Good idea. Cole? Yeah? If something comes, if we have to fight, will you stay? The question was vulnerable in a way Lena's voice never was. Not asking if he'd fight, asking if he'd stay, if he'd choose her over running. I'll stay, Evan said without hesitation. We're partners now. I don't leave partners behind. He heard her exhale like she'd been holding her breath. Okay, good. They slept fitfully that night, waking at every sound, every shift of wind. But morning came anyway, finding them alive and unharmed. The 10th day dawned clear and bright, the storm now just a memory. They ate breakfast, more breadfruit, some coconut, and prepared to explore the North Ridge. It was the one part of the island they hadn't thoroughly investigated, and it was time. "Stay close," Lena said as they set out. "We watch each other's backs. We don't take unnecessary risks." "Yes, boss." "Don't call me that." "What should I call you then?" She thought about it. "Lena, just Lena. Titles don't mean anything here." "Lena it is." The climb to the North Ridge was steep and treacherous, but the view from the top was worth it. They could see the entire island spread below them, and beyond that, ocean stretching to every horizon. Still empty. Still no rescue. But they also saw something else. On the far side of the island, half hidden by jungle, what looked like man-made structures. Old, weathered, possibly abandoned. "What is that?" Evan asked, pointing. Lena shaded her eyes, studying it. "I don't know, but we're going to find out." They descended the ridge carefully, making their way toward the structures. As they got closer, the truth became clear. Someone had been here before. Long ago. But they'd been here. Wooden posts, rotted and covered in vines, stone foundations. What might have been a dock, now mostly collapsed into the sea. This island had been inhabited once, or at least visited with enough regularity to build permanent structures. Research station, maybe, Lena theorized, examining the remains. Or a small settlement. Looks like it's been abandoned for years. Decades, Evan corrected, pointing to a metal sign so corroded he could barely make out letters. This is old. Really old. They searched the area carefully, looking for anything useful. Most of the structures had collapsed or been reclaimed by jungle. But in one partially standing building, they found treasure. Canned goods. Rusted, dented, but sealed. Labels too faded to read, but the cans themselves intact. Tools. A machete so rusted it barely functioned, but better than nothing. Rope. Real rope, not vines. Moldy and weak in places, but salvageable. And most incredibly, a radio. Ancient, water-damaged, probably non-functional, but a radio nonetheless. "Can we fix it?" Lena asked, cradling the device like it was made of gold. "I don't know, maybe. If we can dry it out, clean the components, find a power source." Evan turned it over in his hands. "It's a long shot." "Everything here is a long shot. That doesn't mean we don't try." They loaded their finds into makeshift sacks and prepared to head back. But as they were leaving, Evan noticed something else. Carved into one of the wooden posts, barely visible under years of growth and decay, were words. He cleared away the vines, revealing the message. "Hope dies last. Hold on." Lena stood beside him, reading it. Someone else was stranded here. "Yeah." "Do you think they made it? Got rescued?" "I don't know, but they survived long enough to leave a message. That's something." They stood in silence, contemplating the unknown person who'd carved those words. Had they been rescued? Had they died here? Had they given up or held on? No way to know. But the message remained. Hope dies last. Hold on. "We're holding on," Lena said quietly, touching the carving. "Whoever you were, wherever you are now, we're holding on." They made their way back to the shelter, carrying their salvaged supplies and renewed determination. They had food. They had tools. They had a radio that might work. They had each other. And they had hope. Even on a deserted island, even after 10 days with no rescue, even with sharks in the water and mysteries in the jungle and uncertainty everywhere, they had hope. It was stupid, illogical, completely unsupported by evidence, but it was all they had. So they held on. The radio sat between them like a promise neither wanted to break. Evan had spent the last 2 hours disassembling it piece by careful piece, laying each component on a flat rock in the fading afternoon light. Salt corrosion had eaten through most of the circuits. The battery compartment was a green-brown mess of decay, but the core mechanics, miraculously, seemed intact. "Talk to me," Lena said, watching him work with the intensity she probably once brought to quarterly earnings reports. "What are we looking at?" "Honestly, a miracle if this thing ever works again." Evan used a thin wire to scrape corrosion from a circuit board. "But the bones are good. If I can clean the contacts, bypass the damaged sections, maybe jury-rig a power source from the camp stove's battery and some of the wiring from the plane wreckage." "How long?" "Days? Maybe a week? And that's if everything goes perfectly. which it won't. He looked up at her. We need to manage expectations here. This is a 40-year-old radio that's been sitting in jungle humidity for decades. The odds of getting it functional are better than they were yesterday, Lena finished. Before yesterday, we had zero chance of radio contact. Now we have some chance. That's progress. She was right, and they both knew it. But Evan also knew something about hope. It could sustain you, or it could destroy you when it inevitably shattered. He'd watched it happen with Sarah, the way each new treatment brought hope, and each failure carved away a little more of her spirit until there was nothing left but resignation. I'll work on it every day, he promised, but we can't put all our energy here. We still need food, water, shelter maintenance. I know, we parallel process. You work on the radio when you can. I'll handle the hunting and foraging. She stood, grabbed the spear. Speaking of which, we're almost out of protein. I'm going fishing before the light goes completely. Not alone. Remember what we said about staying together. Cole, one of us needs to work on that radio, and it's not going to be me. I barely understand how my phone works, let alone military-grade communications equipment from the Cold War. She was already heading toward the beach. I'll be careful. Stay in the shallows. Keep an eye out for our friend with the fin. Lena, 1 hour. If I'm not back, you can come play hero. She paused at the cave entrance, looked back. But I will be back. I'm getting better at this, the surviving thing. She disappeared into the jungle before he could argue further. Evan wanted to follow, wanted to insist they stick together, but she was right. They needed to divide tasks if they were going to improve their situation. And he trusted her. That was new, that trust. A week ago, he'd been terrified of making eye contact with his CEO. Now he trusted her with his life. Strange what desperation did to relationships. He returned to the radio, working methodically as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and red. The process was meditative, almost peaceful. Each cleaned connection, each bypassed circuit, each small victory against entropy. His hands remembered things he'd learned in the reserves, skills buried under years of civilian comfort. It felt good to use them again. An hour passed. Then another 30 minutes. Evan's nerves started to fray. He was about to go looking for her when he heard her voice. Cole, get out here. Not scared, excited. He dropped the radio components and ran. Lena stood on the beach, soaking wet, grinning like a child on Christmas morning. At her feet was the biggest fish Evan had seen yet, at least 3 pounds, silvery and still flopping weakly. I got it, she shouted, gesturing wildly at her catch. I actually got it. It was just sitting there in this tidal pool the storm created, and I thought, why not try? And I threw the spear, and holy shit, I actually hit it. Evan laughed at her uncharacteristic enthusiasm, at the way she'd completely abandoned her CEO composure for pure, unfiltered joy. That's incredible. Incredible. Cole, this is a feast. This changes everything. She picked up the fish, held it triumphantly over her head. We eat like kings tonight. Queens. What? We eat like queens. You caught it. She lowered the fish, studying him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Then she smiled, genuinely, warmly, without any of the corporate calculation he'd seen in countless meetings. We eat like survivors, together. That's better than any royal title. They cleaned and cooked the fish as darkness settled over the island. The meat was white and flaky and tasted better than anything Evan could remember eating. They savored every bite, rationing it out to make it last, talking about everything and nothing. Tell me about the reserves, Lena said, licking fish oil from her fingers. You mentioned training. Was it hard? Yeah. Brutal sometimes. We did exercises in all conditions, desert heat, mountain cold, swamp humidity. The instructors were trying to prepare us for anything. He smiled at the memory. I hated it at the time, couldn't understand why they pushed us so hard. Now I'm grateful. Those skills are literally keeping us alive. Do you ever wish you'd stayed, made it a career? Sometimes. But then I met Sarah, and she wanted stability, a normal life. White picket fence, 2.5 kids, the whole suburban dream. He stared into the fire. I chose her over the military. Never regretted it until she got sick and I realized I couldn't fight that enemy. Couldn't protect her from her own cells turning against her. You did protect her, though. From fear, from being alone, from dying without someone who loved her. Lena's voice was soft. That's its own kind of battle. It doesn't feel like victory. Because you're still here and she's not. Survivor's guilt. She nodded knowingly. I understand that more than you might think. What do you have to feel guilty about? She was quiet for a long moment, weighing whether to share. Then, when my company was still small, just me and 6 employees, we took on a project that was too big for us. I knew it, but I wanted to prove we could compete with the major players, so I pushed everyone to their limits. 80-hour weeks, impossible deadlines. One of my developers, Marcus, tried to tell me we needed more time. I told him to figure it out or quit. What happened? He fell asleep at his desk one night, drove home exhausted, and wrapped his car around a telephone pole. Died instantly. Her voice cracked. He was 26, had a girlfriend he was planning to propose to, and I killed him because I was too arrogant to admit we were in over our heads. That's not... It is, though. His death is on me. I could say he should have known his limits, should have called someone for a ride, should have made better choices. But I created the environment that made him feel like he couldn't. I valued profit over people, and someone died. She looked at Evan directly. So yes, I understand survivor's guilt. I understand living with choices you can't take back. Evan didn't know what to say to that, didn't know how to respond to such raw honesty. So he did what he'd learned to do with Maya. He just sat with it. Let the confession exist without trying to fix it or explain it away. After Marcus died, Lena continued, I changed, became harder, more ruthless. I told myself that sentiment was weakness, that caring too much led to mistakes. I built walls between myself and everyone who worked for me, treated people as resources instead of humans. She laughed bitterly, and you know what? It worked. The company thrived, I thrived, but I also became someone I'm not sure I like very much. You're not that person here, Evan said quietly. On this island, you're just Lena, and Lena is brave and smart and determined to survive. That's who you are when you strip away all the corporate bullshit. Or maybe this is who I could have been if I'd made different choices. She stood, brushing sand from her torn skirt. We should check the signal fire. Storm season isn't over, could get hit again any day. They walked to the beach together, tended the fire in companionable silence. The flames climbed into the night sky, a beacon for ships that never came. But they maintained it anyway, because what else could they do? 12 days, Evan said, watching embers drift upward. We've been here 12 days. I know. Maya's birthday is in 6 weeks. I promised her we'd go to the aquarium, her favorite place. She wants to see the jellyfish exhibit. You'll make it. We'll get you home in time. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll try. That we'll both try. She turned to face him. Cole, I need you to do something for me. What? Stop preparing for failure. Stop thinking about all the ways this could go wrong, all the reasons we might not make it. I need you to fight like you believe we're getting rescued, even if you don't actually believe it, even if it's just performance. I need that from you. Why? Because I'm barely holding it together, she admitted, voice rough. I'm terrified every single second, terrified of dying here, terrified of failing, terrified that everything I built, everything I accomplished, will mean nothing because I'll be a footnote in a crash report. And the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart is watching you stay calm, watching you just keep going. Evan stared at her, stunned by the confession. You think I'm calm? Compared to the chaos in my head? Yeah. Lena, I'm screaming inside constantly. I'm just better at hiding it. Then we'll both hide it. From each other, from the island, from whatever part of us wants to give up. She held out her hand. Deal? He took it. Her hand was calloused now, rough from work and survival. Not the soft executive hand that had signed his employment contract. This was the hand of someone who'd rebuilt themselves from scratch. Deal, he said. The 13th day brought unwelcome visitors. Evan woke to the sound of Lena shouting. He grabbed the spear and burst from the shelter to find her standing at the cave entrance, throwing rocks at a group of wild pigs ransacking their food supplies. Get out, she screamed, launching another rock. Get the hell away from our stuff! The pigs scattered, squealing indignantly. dragging pieces of breadfruit with them into the jungle. Evan helped her chase the last one off, then they surveyed the damage. They got half our food stores, Lena said, fury and devastation warring in her voice. Hours of foraging just gone. We'll get more. We know where to find it now. That's not the point. She kicked at the scattered debris. We had it secured. We had a system. And they just took it. Like we don't matter. Like our survival is some kind of joke. Evan recognized the spiral. She wasn't really angry about the pigs. She was angry about everything. The crash, the island, the helplessness, the fear. The pigs were just the excuse her emotions needed to finally overflow. Hey, he said gently. Come here. I know you don't. Come here anyway. She came reluctantly, and he pulled her into a hug. She resisted for about 3 seconds, then collapsed against him, shaking with suppressed sobs. He held her while she cried, the same way she'd held him a few days ago, when he'd broken down. I hate this, she said into his shoulder. I hate being powerless. I hate that I can't control anything. I hate that I'm crying about pigs stealing fruit when there are bigger problems. I hate all of it. I know. Do you? Do you really? Because you never seem to fall apart. You just keep being steady and calm and reliable, and meanwhile I'm over here losing my mind over livestock. They're wild boar, technically. She pulled back, glaring at him through tears. That's not helpful. Sorry, wrong time for humor. Very wrong time. But she was almost smiling. How do you do it? Stay together when everything's falling apart? I don't. I just wait until you're not looking before I fall apart. He wiped a tear from her cheek. We take turns breaking down. That's how partnership works. You held me together when I lost it. Now I return the favor. I don't like needing someone. Too bad. You're stuck with me. She laughed wetly, pulling away to wipe her face. Stuck. That's accurate. Literally stuck on an island with a man I barely knew 2 weeks ago. And now? Now you've seen me at my worst, crying about pigs, covered in dirt and fish guts, hair like a disaster, no makeup, no power suits, no control over anything. She looked at him directly. Still think I'm your intimidating CEO? No, Evan said honestly. Now I think you're Lena, and Lena is a hell of a lot more interesting than any CEO. Something shifted in her expression, softened. For a moment, Evan thought she might cry again, but instead she just nodded. We should set up better defenses, keep the pigs out. Agreed. But first, breakfast. What did they leave us? Some coconuts, a few pieces of breadfruit they didn't want. Not much. Then we hunt. And this time, maybe we hunt pig. Her eyes lit up. Can we do that? I mean, they're eating our food, fair trade, right? I like the way you think, Cole. They spent the morning creating a trap using techniques from the survival manual. A pit covered with branches and leaves, baited with fruit. It was crude, probably wouldn't work, but it felt good to take action, to fight back against something, even if that something was wild pigs. While Lena worked on the trap, Evan returned to the radio. He'd made progress, cleaned most of the major components, identified which circuits could be salvaged and which needed to be bypassed. The problem remained power. The camp stove's battery wasn't designed for this kind of draw, and trying to convert it might damage their only reliable fire source. He was contemplating solutions when he heard it. A sound he'd almost forgotten existed. The distant drone of an engine. Evan's heart stopped. He dropped the radio and ran to the beach, scanning the sky frantically. There, a small plane flying high and fast, maybe 3 miles out. "Lena!" he screamed. "Plane! There's a plane!" She appeared beside him seconds later, both of them jumping, waving, screaming at the top of their lungs. Evan grabbed a piece of reflective metal from the wreckage, angled it toward the sun, trying to create flashes that might catch a pilot's attention. "See us!" Lena screamed at the sky. "We're here! Look down! Please look down!" But the plane continued on its path, straight and undeviating, not changing course, not circling back, just passing through their airspace like they didn't exist. They watched it disappear into the distance, taking their hope with it. Evan sank down onto the sand, crushing disappointment settling over him like a physical weight. So close. They'd been so close. If the plane had just been a little lower, a little closer, if the pilot had glanced in their direction at the right moment. They'll come back, Lena said, but her voice was hollow. Planes follow routes. If they flew over once, they'll fly over again. When? In another 2 weeks? A month? Never? I don't know. She sat beside him. But now we know someone flies over this area. That's information. We can use it. How? We make a better signal, bigger, something visible from altitude, not just at sea level. She was already thinking, strategizing, turning despair into action. We clear a section of beach, spell out SOS with rocks or logs. Make it huge, impossible to miss. That'll take days. Then we start now. We work on it every day until it's done. She stood, offered him her hand. Come on, Cole. That plane means someone is out there. Someone who might look down. We just need to make sure they can see us when they do. He took her hand, let her pull him up. She was right. The plane was proof they weren't completely isolated. Someone flew this route, which meant eventually someone would notice them. Eventually. They spent the rest of the day hauling rocks, clearing sand, beginning the massive project of creating a ground signal. It was backbreaking work, made worse by the heat and their limited energy, but it felt purposeful, productive, like they were doing something that mattered. By evening, they'd spelled out one letter, S. 2 more to go, Lena said, examining their work. Looks good. Visible? Tomorrow, we'll do the O. My shoulder's killing me. I know, mine too, and my feet and my back and everything else. She stretched, wincing. We're not built for this kind of labor, but we're doing it anyway. Because we're stubborn. Because we're survivors. She started walking back to the shelter. Come on, let's eat, rest, and start again tomorrow. Dinner was meager, some coconut, a few grubs Lena had found under a rotting log. They were both too tired to hunt or fish properly. They ate in silence, exhaustion making conversation seem like too much effort. Cole, Lena said finally, if we get rescued, when we get rescued, what happens then? What do you mean? Between us, do we just go back to how things were? CEO and employee? Pretend this never happened? Evan hadn't thought about it. Hadn't let himself think beyond survival. I don't know. Seems impossible to pretend, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. She was quiet for a moment. I don't have many friends. Never did. Always kept people at a distance because that's what you do when you're in charge. But this, what we have here, feels like friendship, real friendship, and I don't want to lose that when we go back. Then we don't. We stay friends. Weird as that might be in a corporate setting. It would be weird. People would talk, assume things. Let them. Who cares what they think? I usually do. Care what people think. It's part of the game. She smiled faintly. But maybe I'm tired of playing games. Maybe we both are. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their small fire burn down to embers. Evan found himself thinking about what came after, assuming there was an after. Would he go back to his old job? Could he sit in meetings with Lena and pretend they hadn't survived together? Could she go back to being the untouchable CEO after he'd seen her cry about pigs? Probably not. But that was a problem for later. For now, they had an island to survive and a signal to build. The next 4 days fell into a brutal routine. Wake up. Forage enough food to maintain energy. Work on the SOS signal. Check the radio repair progress. Maintain the signal fire. Collapse from exhaustion. Repeat. The SOS grew letter by letter. The O took 3 days, getting the curve right, making it large enough, ensuring it would be visible from altitude. The final S was faster, both of them more practiced now at moving rocks and logs. On the 17th day they finished. SOS spelled out in rocks and driftwood on the beach, each letter 50 feet tall, visible for miles if anyone bothered to look. They stood at the jungle edge, examining their work with something approaching pride. It's good, Lena said. Really good. Better than I expected. Will it be enough? I don't know, but it's more than we had before. She turned to him. You've lost weight. So have you. Yeah, we're both running on fumes at this point. She touched his shoulder gently, the injured one that had mostly healed but still ached in the mornings. How's this doing? Better. Stiff sometimes, but functional.
Good. Because I need you functional, need you here. She said it matter-of-factly, but there was weight behind the words. Need, not want, need. I'm not going anywhere, Lena. Promise? I promise. She nodded, satisfied, and started walking back to the shelter.
Evan followed, wondering when exactly they'd crossed the line from forced partnership to something that felt like chosen family.
Somewhere between the crash and now. Somewhere between survival and actually living. That night, as they sat by their fire eating roasted fish that Lena had caught and breadfruit that Evan had foraged, she asked him something unexpected. If you could go back to before the crash, would you get on that plane? Evan considered it, really considered it. If he'd known the plane would crash, would he still board? Would he choose to strand himself here, away from Maya, fighting for his life daily? Yes, he said finally. Really? Even knowing what would happen? Because of what would happen. Because being here, surviving this, has reminded me who I am, who I was before Sarah died and I became just Maya's dad and nothing else. He looked at her. I'd forgotten I was capable, forgotten I could face hard things and not break.
This island stripped away everything comfortable and forced me to remember. That's an expensive memory. Yeah, but maybe I needed expensive. Maybe I needed to be broken down to rebuild better. Lena stared into the fire, processing this. I think I understand that. Being here, I'm not the CEO who built an empire. I'm just someone trying not to die. And somehow, that's more honest than anything I've done in years. So would you get on the plane, knowing? She thought about it longer than Evan had. Then quietly, yes. Because otherwise I never would have known you, never would have learned what real partnership feels like, never would have discovered I'm stronger than my title. They sat with that truth between them, two people who'd needed this disaster to find something essential they'd lost. The radio, Evan said eventually. I think I've solved the power problem, found some solar cells in the wreckage, weathered but functional. If I can rig them correctly, charged during the day, store enough energy, how long until you can test it? 2 days, maybe 3. I need to finish the connections, test the voltage, pray nothing explodes. And if it works, what's the range? Honestly, no idea. Could be 5 miles, could be 50. Depends on atmospheric conditions, the antenna, 1,000 variables I can't control. He met her eyes. But it's our best shot at reaching someone beyond visual range. Then we make it work, whatever it takes. 2 days later, as the sun climbed toward noon, Evan completed the final connection on the radio. His hands trembled as he positioned the solar cells to maximize charge. The device was a Frankenstein's monster of salvaged parts and desperate improvisation. Original radio housing, plain wiring, camp stove battery, solar cells, all held together with hope and prayer. Lena stood beside him as he flipped the power switch. Nothing happened. Wait, he said, adjusting connections. Just wait. A crackle. Static, then, impossibly, a voice. Distant, broken, but unmistakably human. Repeat. This is... Crackle. Frequency 1, 2. Static. Anyone. Lena grabbed Evan's arm so hard it hurt. It works! Holy shit, it works! Evan grabbed the microphone, pressed the transmit button. Hello? Can you hear me? This is Evan Cole. We are stranded survivors from Flight 227. Can anyone hear me? Static. He tried again. This is Evan Cole and Lena Hartwell. We crashed 17 days ago. We're on an island in the South Pacific. Please respond. Can anyone hear us? More static. Then faintly, signal weak. Confirm your... We're survivors! Lena shouted into the microphone. Flight 227. We crashed. There are 2 of us. Please send help. The voice came through clearer now. Confirm coordinates. Repeat. Your location. We don't know our coordinates, Evan said desperately. We're on an island approximately 3 miles long, volcanic rock, jungle vegetation. We went down during a storm. Static drowned him out. He tried for another 20 minutes, frantically adjusting frequencies, repositioning the antenna, making contact only to lose it seconds later. But the message got through in fragments. Someone heard them. Someone knew they were alive. Someone was coming. The radio went silent after that last transmission, and no amount of adjusting or pleading could bring the voice back. Evan worked on it for hours, checking connections, repositioning the solar cells, trying different frequencies. Nothing. The brief window of contact had closed as mysteriously as it had opened. Maybe that's it, Lena said, pacing the shelter. Maybe they got enough information. Maybe they're already sending someone. Or maybe they didn't get anything useful and we're back to square one. Evan set down the radio, frustration evident in every movement. We don't know what they heard. Don't know if they could triangulate our position from such a weak signal. Don't know if they're even looking. They heard us, Cole. That's more than we had yesterday. Is it? Or did we just torture ourselves with false hope? Lena stopped pacing, turned to face him directly. Hey, remember what you told me about fighting like we believe rescue is coming? I need that from you right now. I need you to believe that message got through, because if you don't, I'm going to fall apart, and we can't both fall apart at the same time. Evan took a breath, forcing himself to center. She was right. They'd taken turns being the strong one for nearly 3 weeks now. It was her turn to need that strength, which meant it was his turn to provide it. Okay, he said. You're right. Someone heard us. They're coming. We just need to be ready when they arrive. How long do you think? Could be days, could be a week. Depends on how clearly they heard us, how quickly they can organize a search grid, weather conditions, 1,000 factors. He stood, moved to the cave entrance. But we keep the signal fire burning, keep the SOS visible, keep ourselves alive and ready. The next 3 days were agony. Every sound became potential rescue. Every shadow on the horizon became a ship. They took turns watching the sky and ocean, barely sleeping, running on adrenaline and desperate hope. The radio remained stubbornly silent despite Evan's constant attempts to reestablish contact. On the 20th day, Lena's trap finally worked. They heard the squealing before they saw it, high-pitched, panicked, furious. They raced to the trap site to find a young boar thrashing in the pit, very much alive and very angry about its situation. We got one, Lena breathed, staring at their catch. We actually got one. Now we just need to... Evan trailed off, realizing the problem. The manual had instructions for trapping game, but actually killing and butchering it was something else entirely. He'd never done it, never even watched it done. I'll do it, Lena said quietly. It was my trap. I should finish it. You don't have to. Yes, I do. We need the meat, and I need to know I can. She gripped the spear tighter, knuckles white. If we're going to survive until rescue comes, we can't be squeamish. It wasn't clean or pretty. The boar fought to the end, but Lena didn't hesitate, didn't flinch away from what needed to be done. When it was over, she stood over their kill, shaking but resolute. I'm sorry, she whispered to the boar. Thank you for your life. We won't waste it. They spent the rest of the day processing the meat, a brutal education in field butchery that left them both exhausted and nauseated, but ultimately successful. They cooked some immediately, salted what they could with seawater for preservation, and stored the rest as carefully as possible. That night, eating roasted pork for the first time in weeks, Evan saw tears sliding down Lena's face. You okay? He asked gently. I killed something today. Looked it in the eye and killed it. She wiped at her face angrily. I know it was necessary. I know we needed the food, but I still took a life. That stays with you. Yeah, it does. Evan set down his food, moved closer to her. But you did it humanely as you could. Didn't make it suffer. Respected what it gave us. That matters. Does it? It does to me. And I think it would to the boar if it could understand. Quick death, purpose in dying, gratitude from those who benefit. That's better than most animals get. She nodded slowly, accepting his words if not entirely believing them. I'm not the same person who got on that plane 3 weeks ago. Neither am I. No, I mean it. That Lena Hartwell wouldn't have done this, wouldn't have been capable. She was soft, sheltered by money and power and carefully constructed walls. But this version, she gestured at herself, at their shelter, at the island. This version knows how to gut a pig, how to filter water, how to survive without the safety nets she thought she needed. Is that a good thing? I don't know yet. Ask me when we get home. She managed a small smile. If we get home.
When? Evan corrected firmly.
When we get home. The 22nd day broke with clouds gathering on the horizon, another storm building, this one looking worse than the last. They spent the morning securing everything, reinforcing the shelter, moving supplies to higher ground. The air felt electric, charged with approaching violence. We should probably take shelter soon, Lena said, eyeing the darkening sky. This one looks bad. Agreed. But first I want to check the radio one more time. Maybe the changing atmospheric conditions will help the signal. He was adjusting the antenna when he heard it. Not static this time, but an actual voice, clear and strong. Unidentified survivors. This is U.S. Coast Guard cutter Steadfast. If you can hear this transmission, please respond. We are conducting search operations in your suspected area. Please confirm if you can hear us. Evan's hands shook so badly, he almost dropped the microphone. This is Evan Cole. We can hear you. Here.
We're here. There are two of us, Evan Cole and Lena Hartwell, survivors from Flight 227. Mr. Cole, this is Captain Matthews. We have received your earlier transmission and have been searching based on your description. Can you provide any landmarks or identifying features of your location? Evan's mind raced. Volcanic island, approximately 3 miles long, heavy jungle vegetation. We've created an SOS signal on the beach using rocks and driftwood, each letter approximately 50 feet tall. We have a signal fire burning on the north beach. There are abandoned structures on the east side of the island. Old research station or settlement, maybe 40 years old. A pause. Then, stand by, Mr. Cole. We're checking our charts and search grid. Lena grabbed his free hand, squeezing so hard it hurt. Her eyes were wide, desperate with hope. Mr. Cole, the captain's voice returned. Based on your description and our trajectory plots, we believe we've identified your location. We're approximately 30 nautical miles from your position. Current weather conditions are deteriorating rapidly. We'll need to approach carefully, but we should reach you within 4 to 6 hours. 4 to 6 hours. Less than a day. After 3 weeks of isolation, rescue was hours away. We'll be ready, Evan said, voice rough with emotion. Thank you. Thank you so much. Stay safe, Mr. Cole. Keep that signal fire burning if you can. And Mr. Cole, we're bringing you home. The transmission ended. Evan and Lena stared at each other for a frozen moment. Then she laughed, a sound somewhere between joy and hysteria, and threw her arms around him. They're coming, she said into his shoulder. They're actually coming. We did it, Cole. We survived long enough. We did. He held her tight, feeling her shake with suppressed sobs. We're going home. They spent the next hour in frantic preparation, fed the signal fire despite the approaching storm, gathered their few possessions, the survival manual, some tools, the radio, changed into the least damaged clothes they had, tried to make themselves presentable for rescue, though 3 weeks on an island had left its marks on both of them. Do I look terrible? Lena asked, attempting to finger-comb her tangled hair. You look like someone who survived a plane crash and lived on a deserted island for 3 weeks. Which is to say, you look like a badass. She snorted. I look like I lost a fight with a hedge trimmer. But I suppose it doesn't matter. We're alive. That's what counts. The storm hit an hour later, earlier and harder than expected. Rain sheeted down in blinding walls. Thunder shook the ground. Lightning split the sky in jagged white lines. They took shelter in the cave, watching water stream past the entrance, wondering if the Coast Guard would still come in this weather or if they'd have to wait it out. They'll come, Lena said, reading his thoughts. They've come this far. They won't turn back now. 2 hours passed. 3. The storm showed no signs of stopping. Evan kept checking the beach, looking for any sign of a ship, but visibility was nearly zero. They could only wait. Then, through the rain, he heard it. Not thunder, engines. Lena? He grabbed her arm. Do you hear that? They rushed to the cave entrance, peering through the downpour. And there, cutting through the chaos, was a white cutter, Coast Guard markings visible on its hull. It was struggling against the waves, but it was there. It was real. They came, Lena whispered. Even in this storm, they came for us. They ran to the beach, waving frantically. Through the rain, Evan could see figures on the deck, someone pointing toward them. A smaller boat was being lowered.
a rigid inflatable, designed for exactly this kind of rescue. The next 20 minutes were controlled chaos. The inflatable fought its way to shore. Uniformed personnel jumped out, shouting instructions. Someone wrapped a thermal blanket around Evan's shoulders. Someone else was checking Lena for injuries, asking rapid-fire questions. "Are you hurt? Are there any other survivors? How long have you been here?" 3 weeks, Evan heard himself say. "Just the two of us. Everyone else died in the crash. We need to get you to the ship. The storm's getting worse. Can you walk?" "Yes, we can walk." Lena's voice was steady, despite everything. "We've been walking for 3 weeks. We can make it to a boat." They were loaded into the inflatable, life jackets secured around them. As they pulled away from the island, Evan looked back at the beach, at the shelter that had kept them alive, at the signal fire still burning despite the rain, at the SOS spelled out in rocks that had finally brought rescue. "Goodbye," he whispered. The journey to the cutter was rough, waves trying to swamp them, but the Coast Guard crew knew what they were doing. Within minutes, they were being hauled aboard, guided below deck into warmth and safety and civilization. A medic immediately began examining Evan's shoulder, while another checked Lena's vital signs. Someone brought water, clean, cold, in plastic bottles that seemed impossibly luxurious after 3 weeks of boiling stream water. Someone else brought sandwiches, real food, and Evan had to force himself not to devour them too quickly. "Easy," the medic cautioned. "Your stomachs aren't used to this. Small bites. Let your body adjust." Lena was sitting across from him, wrapped in blankets, looking overwhelmed. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Evan saw everything they'd been through reflected back at him. The crash, the fear, the hunger, the partnership that had kept them both alive. "Mr. Cole? Miss Hartwell?" Captain Matthews appeared, a weathered man in his 50s with kind eyes. "I need to ask you some questions for the record, but first, I want you to know. Your families have been notified. They know you're alive. They're waiting to hear from you as soon as we can arrange communication." Maya. His daughter knew he was alive. Evan felt something break open in his chest, relief so profound it was almost painful. "My daughter. Can I talk to her? We're setting up a satellite call right now. Should be ready in about 10 minutes. The captain smiled. "She's been waiting a long time. We'll make sure you get to talk to her." Those 10 minutes were the longest of Evan's life. Longer than waiting for rescue. Longer than the storm. Longer than anything. When they finally handed him the satellite phone, his hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it. "Hello? Daddy?" Maya's voice, small and scared and desperately hopeful. "Daddy? Is that really you?" "Yes, sweetheart. It's really me." His voice broke. "I'm okay. I'm coming home." She burst into tears. "They said you were dead. They said the plane crashed and everyone died and you weren't coming home ever, and I thought, I know, baby, I know, but I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm on a Coast Guard ship and they're bringing me home to you, I promise." "You promise? You really promise?" "I really promise. And you know Daddy never breaks his promises." She sobbed harder, but it was relief now, joy mixed with 3 weeks of grief finally being released. In the background, Evan could hear his sister crying too, offering comfort and support. "Maya, honey, I need to tell you something important. There was someone else with me on the island. Her name is Lena, and she helped keep me alive. She's a very special person, and I want you to meet her when we get home. Is that okay?" "She helped you?" "She did. We helped each other. We were a team." "Then I want to meet her. I want to say thank you for keeping my daddy safe." Evan looked across the cabin at Lena, who was having her own emotional phone conversation with someone, her assistant, maybe, or a family member. She caught his eye and smiled through tears. "You will, sweetheart. I promise. Now I need to let other people use the phone, but I'll call you again soon, okay? Maybe in a few hours." "Okay? Daddy, I love you so much." "I love you too, Maya. More than anything in the whole world. I'll see you very soon." When he hung up, he found Lena had finished her call too. They sat in silence for a moment, processing the reality of rescue, of survival, of going home. "That was my assistant," Lena said finally. "She's been handling everything, the company, the press, the investigation. Apparently, there's a media circus waiting for us when we land. Of course there is. Billionaire CEO and employee survive plane crash. That's headline news. Yeah. She didn't sound excited about it. Cole, when we get back, things are going to get complicated. The company, the hierarchy, the fact that she gestured between them. Whatever this is that we've become, people are going to have opinions. Let them have opinions. It's not that simple. There are protocols, HR policies, public perception to consider. Lena. Evan leaned forward. We survived a plane crash. We lived on a deserted island for 3 weeks. We hunted our own food, purified our own water, and kept each other sane through the worst experience of our lives. Do you really think I care about HR policies? You should. Your job. I'll find another job if I need to. But I'm not going to pretend the island never happened. I'm not going to go back to being terrified of making eye contact with you in the elevator. We're past that. So what do you want? It was a fair question. What did he want? His old life back, but that was impossible. He'd changed too much. They both had. I want to be your friend, he said simply. Real friend, not corporate acquaintance. I want Maya to meet you and like you because you're genuinely likable when you're not trying to be a CEO. I want to not lose what we found on that island just because we're back in civilization. That's a lot to ask. Is it? Or is it just honest? She considered this, then shook her head with a small smile. You know what the problem is with you, Cole? You make things that should be complicated seem simple. Maybe they are simple, and we just overcomplicate them. Maybe. She stood, moved to sit beside him. Okay. Friends. Real friends. We figure out the rest as we go. Deal. They shook on it, and Evan realized how surreal it was, making friendship pacts with his CEO on a Coast Guard cutter after being rescued from a deserted island. Life was strange, but also beautiful in its strangeness. The journey back to civilization took 2 days. The storm delayed them, forcing the cutter to take a longer, safer route, but Evan and Lena didn't mind. They needed the time to decompress, to adjust to being around people again, to prepare for what was waiting for them. The medics checked them repeatedly. Evan's shoulder would need physical therapy, but had healed remarkably well. Lena had lost 15 pounds and had various cuts and infections that needed treatment, but nothing life-threatening. They'd survived with minimal permanent damage, physically at least. Emotionally and psychologically, well, that would take longer to assess. On the second night, unable to sleep, Evan found Lena on deck, staring at the ocean. Can't sleep either? He asked, joining her at the rail. Too quiet, too comfortable. My brain doesn't know how to process it. She glanced at him. Weird, right? 3 weeks ago, I would have killed for a real bed and climate control. Now it feels wrong somehow. I know what you mean, like we don't deserve it yet. Survivor's guilt? Probably. He looked out at the dark water. 45 people died on that plane, and we lived. There's no logic to it, no reason we survived, and they didn't. Luck, Lena said quietly. And each other. We survived because we refused to give up, because we worked together, because we were stronger together than we could have been alone. You really believe that? I do. And I think, she paused, choosing her words carefully, I think we were supposed to survive. Not in some cosmic sense, but because we both had things we still needed to do. You had Maya to get back to. I had changes to make in my life. The island forced us to confront who we really are versus who we'd been pretending to be. Heavy philosophy for 2 a.m. It's been a heavy 3 weeks. She turned to face him fully. Cole, I want to offer you something, but I need you to really think about it before answering. Okay. When we get back, I'm restructuring the company, creating a new division focused on emergency response, crisis management, survivor support. I want someone to run it who understands what it means to face the worst and come through the other side. Someone who stays calm under pressure. Someone people trust. You want me to run a division? I want you to lead an initiative that could help thousands of people. Corporate survivors of disasters, families dealing with loss, anyone who needs support navigating trauma. You'd have autonomy, resources, a real budget, your own team. Evan stared at her. Lena, I'm a mid-level sales guy. I don't have the qualifications to... You have exactly the qualifications that matter. You survived. You led. You kept me alive when I wanted to give up. You understand crisis in a way no MBA program can teach. She held up a hand before he could interrupt. But here's the important part. This offer has nothing to do with us being friends. This is purely professional. You'd report to the board, not to me. You'd have complete independence, and if you're not interested, that's fine. We're still friends regardless. That's a hell of an offer. It's a hell of an opportunity, but I need you to think about it. Really think. Don't answer now. Wait until we're home, until you've seen Maya, until you've had time to process everything. Then decide. And if I say no, then you say no, and we find someone else, and you keep doing whatever job makes you happy. No pressure, no guilt. She smiled. I'm learning that not everything is about control or manipulation. Sometimes you just offer people choices and let them choose. The island taught you that? You taught me that. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the ocean roll past. Tomorrow they'd land. Tomorrow they'd face media and questions, and the complicated process of returning to normal life. Tomorrow, everything would change again. But tonight, they were still just two survivors who'd kept each other alive, who'd learned to trust when trust was the only currency that mattered, who'd found friendship in the worst possible circumstances and decided it was worth keeping. Thank you, Evan said quietly, for everything, for pulling me out of the plane, for not giving up, for being exactly the right partner when I needed one. Right back at you, Cole. Right back at you. The next morning, they docked in Honolulu to a circus of media, officials, and loved ones. Evan spotted his sister first, holding Maya's hand, both of them crying already, even though he hadn't reached them yet. Go, Lena said, giving him a gentle push. Go see your daughter. He ran. Maya broke free from her aunt's grip and launched herself at him, and Evan caught her, lifting her up despite his still healing shoulder, holding her like he'd never let go. Daddy, you're real. You're really here. I'm here, baby. I'm here. I'm so sorry you were scared. I'm so sorry. I knew you'd come back. Aunt Sarah said you were gone, but I knew. I knew you wouldn't leave me. She pulled back to look at his face, touching his beard, much longer now, ragged and unkempt. You look different. I am different, but I'm still your dad, still love you more than anything. More than space? It was their game, started when she was 3. More than space, more than oceans, more than all the stars. More than space, he confirmed. More than everything. She hugged him again, and Evan looked over her head to where Lena was being mobbed by her own people. Assistants, lawyers, company executives, all vying for her attention. She looked overwhelmed, but was handling it with practiced grace. Then she caught his eye across the chaos and smiled. A real smile, the kind the CEO never showed. He smiled back. 3 weeks later, Evan sat in Lena's office, formerly terrifying, now just a room with a nice view, while she reviewed the proposal he'd spent days preparing. This is good, she said, setting down the papers. Really good. The Survivor Support Network, the Crisis Response Training, the Family Liaison Program. You've thought this through. I had help, talked to psychologists, crisis counselors, people who actually know what they're doing. I'm just organizing their expertise. Don't sell yourself short. This is visionary work. She looked at him seriously. So? Is that a yes, you'll run the division? Evan had spent 3 weeks thinking about it, talking to Maya about what it would mean, more responsibility, longer hours sometimes, but also purpose and meaning, and a chance to help people. Talking to his sister about whether he was ready. Talking to himself about whether taking this job meant he was accepting something from Lena he hadn't earned. But in the end, the answer was simple. Yes, but on one condition. Name it. Maya meets you first, has dinner with us, decides if she likes you, because if she doesn't approve, I'm out. Lena laughed. You're making your 8-year-old daughter my final interview? She's a tough audience. If you can win her over, you can handle anything. Fair enough. When? Friday, my place, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and honestly talking like normal people. Cole, I haven't been a normal person in 20 years. Then it's time you remembered how. 7 o'clock, don't be late. Friday came faster than Evan expected. He'd cleaned the apartment, coached Maya on being polite but honest, and tried not to overthink the whole thing. It was just dinner. Just his boss meeting his daughter. Completely normal. Totally not weird at all. The doorbell rang at exactly 7. Lena stood in the hallway, holding a bottle of wine and looking more nervous than he'd ever seen her, including on the island. Is wine appropriate? I should have asked. I don't know the protocol for dinner with an 8-year-old. She was rambling, another first. I could go get juice or... Wine's fine, come in. He stepped back, let her enter his small apartment. It was nothing like her world. Cramped and cluttered with Maya's drawings on the fridge and toys in corners, but it was home. Maya appeared from the living room, studying Lena with open curiosity. You're the lady who saved my dad. We saved each other, actually, Lena said, crouching to Maya's level. Your dad's pretty brave. You should be proud of him. I am. He's the best dad in the world. Maya tilted her head. Do you like science? I love science. I started my company developing software for scientific research. What about jellyfish? Do you think they're cool or gross? Cool. Definitely cool. Especially the bioluminescent ones. Maya grinned. You can stay. Just like that, the tension broke. They ate spaghetti and talked about everything. The island, Maya's school, Lena's company, jellyfish, space exploration, why dinosaurs were objectively the best animals ever. Lena dropped her CEO mask completely, laughing at Maya's jokes, asking genuine questions, being present in a way Evan suspected she hadn't been in years. After dinner, while Maya showed Lena her rock collection, Evan cleaned up and marveled at how normal this felt. His daughter and his friend, because that's what Lena was now, truly, bonding over geology while he did dishes. It was domestic and comfortable and everything he'd thought he'd lost after Sarah died. She's wonderful, Lena said later after Maya had gone to bed. They sat on the small balcony, sharing the wine she'd brought. Smart and kind and completely fearless. You're raising an amazing human. I'm trying. Some days are better than others. The fact that you try makes you a good father. She was quiet for a moment. I never wanted kids. Thought they'd interfere with my career. Now, I wonder if I missed out on something important. It's not too late. Maybe not. But I think I'd be terrible at it. I don't know how to be soft enough, patient enough. You were patient with me on the island. Soft when I needed it. You have those skills, you just use them selectively. That's a diplomatic way of saying I'm emotionally unavailable. You're here, aren't you? Having wine on my balcony at 9 o'clock on a Friday instead of working late or attending some corporate function. That's pretty emotionally available. She smiled. I suppose it is. The island changed me more than I realized. Changed both of us. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Somewhere out there, people were living ordinary lives, going to movies, having arguments, falling in love, falling apart. And here they were, two people who'd survived the impossible, trying to figure out what came next. I'm glad you're taking the job, Lena said eventually. I think you'll do incredible things with it. I'm glad you offered it. Gives me purpose beyond just surviving day to day. That's what we both needed, I think. Purpose, direction, a reminder that we're here for a reason. Even if that reason is just to help other people survive their own disasters? Especially if that's the reason. What better purpose is there than helping people through their worst moments? Evan raised his wine glass. To survival. And to what comes after. Lena clinked her glass against his. To what comes after. 6 months later, Evan stood in front of a room full of people, crash survivors, disaster victims, family members of the lost, and told them his story. Not the sanitized version the media had reported, but the real one. The fear, the hunger, the moments he'd wanted to give up, the partnership that had saved him. Survival isn't about being strong all the time, he said. It's about being strong enough to ask for help when you need it, to admit when you're scared, to let someone else carry the weight when you can't do it alone anymore. In the back of the room, Lena watched with Maya beside her. They'd become friends over the months, unlikely as it seemed. Lena teaching Maya about business and science, Maya teaching Lena about Play-Doh and imagination and how to not take everything so seriously. Your dad's really good at this, Lena whispered to Maya. I know, he's good at lots of things,
But mostly, he's good at not giving up. Maya looked up at Lena. Like you. You didn't give up either. We didn't give up on each other. That's different. Is it? Lena thought about that, about how partnership worked, about how the island had taught them both that strength wasn't about independence. It was about knowing when to hold on and when to let someone else hold you. No, she admitted. I guess it's not. After the presentation, after the questions and the gratitude and the tears, Evan found them waiting outside. You were amazing, Lena said, offering him a bottle of water. Those people needed to hear that. I just told the truth, that survival is a team sport. A good truth. She glanced at her watch. I have to head back to the office. Board meeting in an hour. But dinner next week? The three of us? Absolutely. Maya wants to show you her science project. Fair warning, it involves a lot of vinegar. My favorite chemical compound. She ruffled Maya's hair affectionately. See you later, kiddo. Don't let your dad forget to eat vegetables. I won't. Lena walked away, heels clicking on the pavement, back straight and confident. But she turned once to wave, and in that gesture, Evan saw both versions of her, the CEO and the survivor, the boss and the friend. She'd integrated them somehow, become something whole. Dad? Maya said, taking his hand. Are you happy? It was such a simple question, such a profound one. Evan thought about the plane crash, about the island, about 3 weeks of hell that had broken him down and rebuilt him stronger, about the partnership that had saved his life and taught him what real connection looked like, about this job that gave him purpose, about his daughter alive and well and asking wise questions. Yeah, sweetheart, he said, squeezing her hand. I think I am. Good. You deserve to be happy. So do you. Are you? Mostly, except when you make me eat broccoli. Then I'm very unhappy. He laughed, scooped her up even though she was getting too big for it. Well, tonight's pizza night. No broccoli. Just cheese and pepperoni and whatever terrible movie you want to watch. Even the one about the singing cats? Even the one about the singing cats. That's how much I love you. She hugged him tight, and Evan closed his eyes, breathing in the moment. He'd survived. They'd survived. And more than that, they'd found a way to live again. Not just exist, but actually live with purpose and connection and hope for tomorrow. The island had stripped away everything comfortable, everything familiar, everything safe. It had reduced him to his most essential self and asked, "Are you enough?" And somehow, impossibly, the answer had been yes. Not because he was strong or capable or particularly brave, but because when he'd needed help, someone had been there. When he'd wanted to give up, someone had refused to let him. When he'd felt most alone, someone had chosen to stay. That was the real survival skill the island had taught him. Not how to build fires or hunt food or purify water, but how to trust another person with your life and let them trust you with theirs. Everything else was just details. As they walked home through the city streets, Maya chattering about singing cats and science projects, and 1,000 other things that mattered and didn't matter, Evan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of meaning. The knowledge that whatever came next, whatever storms or crashes or disasters life threw at him, he wouldn't face them alone. He had his daughter. He had his friend. He had his purpose. He had survived the worst, and he'd found the best on the other side. That was more than enough. That was everything.